Temos o prazer de chamar ao palco o Country Director do Google Brasil, Fábio Coelho.
Bom dia a todos. Eu adoro aquela frase ali que diz "That's why we want to involve all of you". Pessoal, obrigado pela presença. É um prazer ter vocês aqui nessa manhã. Hoje a gente tem um grupo de executivos bem representativos do Google, executivos muito seniors que vieram aqui para se juntar a executivos de mercado, para a gente conversar um pouquinho sobre a transformação e a reinvenção dos negócios que está ocorrendo através da tecnologia digital e como isso aí afeta não somente o negócio, mas cada parte do nosso negócio e cada parte dos negócios de cada um de nós. Então, essa é uma sessão que eu espero que vocês aproveitem bastante, tem vários conteúdos muito legais e eu realmente espero que vocês desfrutem. Tenham uma boa manhã, obrigado pela presença aqui. E, por favor, fiquem à vontade e espero que vocês tirem o máximo possível de informações e de insights para o negócio de cada um de vocês. Mais uma vez, obrigado. Um bom dia.
E agora, com vocês, Nikesh Arora, Senior Vice President and Chief Business Officer, Google Inc.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Think with Google. How is everyone this morning? Wow, you guys are not very enthusiastic this time in the morning. I had heard that about the Latin culture. You can get people enthusiastic as the night grows longer, but in the morning it's a little hard. So let's try this one more time. How is everyone this morning? Okay, it's going to get better. All right. So I'm here to talk about the future of business, but before that, let me thank you for welcoming me to your country. I experienced Sao Paulo traffic already this morning, so people had warned me about it. I feel almost at home, like you do when I go to India. But somehow it works, doesn't it? Somehow it just works. It's called optimizing resources. I notice people see a little small gap in traffic, they put their car there, slowly the gap widens, and their car goes through. It's sort of like the way we do business, right? You see a small opportunity, you build a business, and you suddenly have a great business. So let's talk about the future of business. But before we talk about the future of business, let's stop, let's pause, and let's take a look at where we have come from. How many of you in this audience do not have a smartphone? Good. You don't know what that is, right? Right. What is not a smartphone? Okay. I won't ask the embarrassing question about how many of you have an Android versus an iPhone, because that would be bad. Then we'll have to take your picture and keep a record of who doesn't have an Android device. So we won't do that. But there's a point in life where technologies go from a nice to have to a must have. And those are very important inflection points in the history of technology. And if you go back and think about it, I have a gentleman here who is taking pictures very, very aggressively. Do you think he has a digital camera, or do you think he has a SLR camera with the reel? You remember those cameras with those reels? How many of you still have one of those? He has one of those. There's about 15 people who have raised their hands. They have those old cameras. Do you guys use them? It's quite easy to take a picture from that and post it to Google Plus or Facebook. You just have to go somewhere, get it developed, and you have to take a picture of the picture from your phone, and then you can post it. It's not that complicated. But I remember the first time digital cameras came out. They weren't as sophisticated, and people were not sure. If you ask them, how many years do you think it will take before digital cameras become what we all use and the real cameras go away? Nobody could say they will be gone in 3 to 5 years. So how many of you have a VCR? You guys know what that is? All right, let's do it more exciting. How many of you have a DVD player? How many years do you think it'll take for DVD players to be extinct? 2 years. Going once? 4 years. Going twice? Anybody believe they'll stay around for 10 years? 8? 5? 5 years, yes? No? Some people think yes, some people think no. We'll find out. One of our tendencies is we actually always end up underestimating the long term and overestimating the short term. So you say, will you think this will happen in 1 year? Say, oh, I'm sure it's going to happen in 1 year. And do you think something's going to happen in 10 years? Maybe not. So we'll see. But we'll talk about DVDs. Let's get it more interesting. How many people still buy books? Aha. How many people think books will be extinct in 5 to 8 years? Raise your hand if you believe they'll be gone. Interesting. How many people think newspapers will be gone in 5 to 8 years? Oh, we have some people who think newspapers will be gone. Magazines? No. 5 to 8 years? No. Okay, interesting. How many people buy CDs? Oh, there are still some people who are buying CDs. I have news for you. There's something called digital music. It's quite easy to download. Right. So the reason we're talking about this is that what we have seen, if you go back and think, we've all remembered occasions when many of these technologies did not exist. You remember the time? How many people remember when there were no mobile phones? You remember? Okay, let's ask a more difficult question. How many of you have kids who are teenagers? Okay, for those of us who have kids who are teenagers, I can promise you those kids don't understand how life was without telephony. They don't understand. It's like, you mean you had to call a friend and say, how do I get to your house? And they said, go straight for about 1 kilometer, you see a big red house in the corner. Don't turn right there, go to the next one, it's a blue house, turn right, 2 trees, behind the 3rd tree is my house. Do you remember doing that? I come from India. When we used to ask for directions, that's how you got directions. And God forbid you go after 2 years, somebody has cut the tree out and you're still looking for the 2nd tree. I can't find the tree. Right? I remember about 15 years ago trying to go for parties and my hit rate was 1:5. I would miss because I didn't write the directions around properly, and at 10 o'clock in the night, I can't see the tree. So moral of the story is always remember the tree, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that the next generation does not remember what we all remember. So the next generation, which is our teenage generation, is going to remember that life, they don't understand what life was without digital cameras. They don't understand how did we get TV shows, how did we watch videos without YouTube. You mean you actually sat in front of the TV, waited for 9 o'clock, and you saw it at 9 o'clock, and if you didn't see it, you could never see it again? Do you remember that time? It's a little easier now, we can find the videos on YouTube. But there was a time when, if you didn't watch it, the broadcasting gods would decide when you get to see it next. So we've come a long way from there. We've come to a point where we carry technology in our pocket. The phones that we carry have more computing power than the first PC that was created. The phones that we carry has more computing power than PCs that were created 2 years ago. We have digital cameras. We're used to carrying technology in our hand. That's a big change, right? So I think there are 3 fundamental changes that are going on that are going to increase the pace of innovation. That pace of innovation is going to impact every business that exists out there. So let's talk about these 3 changes, right? The first change we're going through, as I mentioned, is we are carrying phenomenal amount of computing technology in our pockets. And that phenomenal amount of computing technology is not going to slow down. Our phones are going to get better. Our screens are going to get clearer. As you know, we have people at Google who are working on Google Glasses, so you can actually see the screen on the top of your eye. So you'll see a lot of innovation in the amount of computing power that we can carry as individuals. So that's the first big change. And we'll talk about that a bit more. The second big change that we're all getting used to is the idea of connectivity. Even in this room, I know there are 2 Wi-Fi networks. On top of that, there are 4 mobile networks, so most of you have a device which can connect to the internet. Right? I heard an interesting statistic. I heard that 24% of the people in Brazil would rather give up their car than give up the internet. Now, driving in Sao Paulo traffic, I can understand why you want to give up your car. You know, I would give that up much quicker than my internet connection. But I heard that 8% of people in Brazil would rather not shower than give up the internet. Now, that's a worrying statistic. Okay? I hope all of you have had good internet access, because it is hard if you're in this room and 8% of you have decided that you didn't want to shower this morning. So, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that connectivity is becoming a must-have. It's almost becoming like electricity, it's becoming like water. We are used to connecting to the internet, right? How many of you think you could live without internet access for a week? All right, it's good. I don't see the one person raising his hand. There's one. Normally, the way I test a hypothesis is 1 or 2 people always have to raise their hand on everything. So the good news is 2 people have raised their hand, so this must be true, right? So 2 people believe that they could live without internet for a week. That is good. We always want, that's what we want, people who think out of the box. That's how we create innovation. So they will innovate and find a solution for us. But the point I'm trying to make is we are used to carrying computing power in our pockets. We are used to ubiquitous connectivity. So we believe wherever we go, we will find connectivity, we will find access. Now, just taking those 2 phenomena together, I think it's interesting to see how we go forward in the future. What's going to happen in the future? I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a continued divergence in devices. You will see more and more devices that can connect to the internet. Devices which you didn't think needed a connection, you'll wonder why they're not connected. Take a simple example. Even this camera this gentleman keeps using, now he's turned the flash off, which is very kind of him. This camera is taking a lot of pictures, right? And as we're driving down the street, I've been traveling for about a week. I was in New York, I was in Buenos Aires, I'm here. I've been taking pictures. I have a camera with me, and I have a phone. You know what I prefer to take my pictures with? One guess? My phone. You know why? It's much easier for me to share that picture with my daughter, with my friends, post it on various social networking sites to show people what I'm doing. It's harder. With my camera, I have to take out the SD card, I have to figure out a way of putting them on my computer, then I have to figure out a way of connecting it to the internet, and then posting it up there. It's quite complicated. And then I have to think when I have to do this. With my phone, I take a picture, I put it to share, and whenever I see Wi-Fi, it goes into the internet. So what does that mean? That means most likely our camera should have Wi-Fi, don't you think? That seems logical. Our camera should be able to connect to the internet. Why is it not connecting? That's my photo use case. But if you follow that logic, there are so many examples when we carry devices where you wish that they would be connected to the internet. So I think what's going to happen in the next 5 to 8 years, even devices you're not sure of, even devices you don't think will be connected, will become connected. I carry this small thing in my pocket called a Fitbit. Does anyone know what a Fitbit is? You know, right? It connects by Bluetooth. So I carry it, it counts the number of steps I take, it counts the number of stairs I climb, it sees if I had good sleep or not, and it takes that data and posts it into the internet, and then I get the feedback on an app on my phone so I know if I was a good boy or not. Well, it doesn't actually check the rest of the good boy part, but it does give you a little sense of if you're exercising or not. But that device is connected, right? So what I think one thing we're going to see is we're going to see a divergence of devices. There will be many devices that will become connected to the internet. And you guys have to think about that, what that means, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes about what does that mean for business, how do we transform our businesses based on that insight. The other insight, I think, is you can expect that broadband connectivity will become more and more ubiquitous. Everybody will have access to phenomenal amounts of bandwidth, and you have to think 3 to 5 years out, because I know you can say, if I'm traveling through Sao Paulo, I can't get connectivity, sometimes my GPRS is not working, my Edge is not working, my 3G is not working, my Wi-Fi is not working, but I'll tell you what, think back 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years ago, I could go to a country and my email would not come to me. Now I can travel the world and I get access to the internet wherever I am. So assume that we will have connectivity wherever we go, that people will be connected to the cloud, they will be connected to the internet. And if you believe that, if you believe those 2 facts, I think we're at a point where most businesses are going to change. Let's talk about businesses. How many of you work in the media industry? All right? Publishing? Some people in publishing? Some people in the video business? Video, entertainment, TV advertising? All right, some of you work in that business. What do the rest of you guys do? Okay, I guess there must be other industries, I don't know. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that all of you have seen what the existence of the internet has done to music, right? Barring some people who buy CDs, there is a lot of people in the current generation are downloading music, using it on their devices, whether it's on their iPods, their phones, their computers, people download music. And I think the most telling sign becomes when the car comes with an adapter for your iPod, right? The new cars, have you guys? Yes? So they have connection. That means That is what they believe that the future music use case is, that we will be downloading it digitally and we use it digitally. Now, why is that happening? That's happening because of a third insight. The third insight is that we now have the world's largest frictionless, and remember that word frictionless, world's largest frictionless information, communication, and distribution network. What does that mean? That means you and I can access any piece of information wherever we want, whenever we want. Right? Now, I don't know how you guys grew up in Brazil. I grew up in India, and while growing up, I didn't have access to all the information I wanted. We had to figure out a way of listening to the BBC, sometimes because we didn't get all the right information when I was young on Indian radio. Right? I grew up when you had only 5 books in the library of a certain kind, and there were 40 people in the class, and if you had to reference that book, you had to wait till somebody returned that book. And if they didn't return it for a week, you went back to check. They didn't return it for 2 weeks, you got really scared. If they didn't return it for 4 weeks, you were in trouble. Today, we can access information wherever we want, whenever we want. The cost of accessing information is frictionless, all the way from reading physics lectures from Richard Feynman down to checking your phone to see what is the coolest hip spot to go to, what is the nicest restaurant you want to go to in any city, right? Now it's almost casual. I come to Sao Paulo, I'm like, yeah, don't worry. I don't need tips on which are the nice restaurants. I can Google it, and I can get a reasonably good idea where to go. Sometimes I end up in the wrong places, but most likely I end up in where people are going. So we have frictionless access to information. We have frictionless access to communication, right? You can connect with any of your friends anywhere in the world reasonably quickly. Whether it is through Facebook, whether it is through Google+, whether it's through your phone call, whether it's through sending an email, a text, voice over IP call, or text over WhatsApp, or whatever you're using, you have a frictionless connectivity now. You can communicate with whoever you want. And that's not just restricted to our friends. Businesses can communicate with their users. Businesses can communicate with their fans. They can communicate with whoever they want. So we have frictionless communication. We have frictionless access to information. At least for now, in the area of digital content, we have frictionless distribution. I can download media wherever I want. Last night, I set a few downloads on my Google tablet, and when I get on the plane later this afternoon, all the stuff I want to watch on the plane is going to be downloaded, wherever I am. So that's the other insight. We have created a frictionless network for information, communication, and distribution. And that is what is going to change the way businesses operate. So let's talk about business. The newspaper industry. How many people in the last 3 to 5 years have added the number of newspapers they subscribe to? Has anybody here taken more newspapers in the last 5 years than they were getting? How many of you have dropped a newspaper subscription? I have. So look around the room. We've dropped a newspaper subscription. Now let's analyze that model for a second. Let's analyze the CD model. The newspaper model is an aggregated model. I have stock quotes, I have weather, I have news in it. But now, when I read the newspaper, I don't read the stock quotes. I don't read the weather in the newspaper because I know I have an app which tells me much more accurately what the weather is. It tells me much more accurately what the stock quotes are. So what has happened is the web has created a disaggregation of content. And I, as a user, I'm going for best of breed. I want the best stock quotes. I want the best weather. I want the best news. I want the best analysis. And I can, on the internet, I can go find it from 7 different places because the cost of accessing the information is 0. And I don't mean the cost of content is 0, I'm saying I can access it. Maybe I have to pay for something, maybe I don't have to pay for some things. So if you believe that, what is happening is that anytime we relied on aggregation and bundling, and we had good content and sometimes not so perfect content, it worked because the bundle was right. But in the future, whether it's a CD, which has 12 songs, and you only like 2 of them, but you have to buy the whole CD because that's the only way you can buy it. Now you can go to iTunes or you can go somewhere else and you can download what you want to download. So one of the big impacts you're going to see of the internet is it is going to take a look at businesses that are used to aggregating bundles. It is going to disaggregate them, and you will see that content or goods and services which are not up to par or not best of breed will run the risk that as users, as consumers, we will choose how to access best of breed. So that's one interesting fallout of the way the internet operates. If you take that model and apply that to any industry out there, it is going to impact them in some way, shape, or form on 2 different levels. One is, It impacts the fundamental cost structures of most industries. That means the way we think about consumers, the way we do research, the way we spend our money, the way we source things. Let's take a look at the TV industry. Did you guys watch the video which was started in the beginning? Do you know who that Korean guy is? You do? What's his name? Psy. What's his song called? Gangnam Style, right? Did you know him 3 months ago? See, she's got the horse move right? That's all right, I can see. The lights are not strong enough. So, do you know what this guy did? In 6 weeks, he got 194 million video views on YouTube. 6 weeks. And now he's been signed by Universal Music. So now he's the new hot rising star. And you know how he became popular? On the internet, right? He posted a YouTube video. He has 194 million video views. He's become a rock star, or not exactly a rock star, but a pop star. We will all be dancing the horse way in a short period of time. So the reason I bring that up is, in the past, the process of discovery and finding new talent in the music industry or in the video industry was, there were experts who went around, tried to find great talent, they signed them up, and they signed up 1,000 people, and they ended up with 5 stars or 10 stars. Today, we all post our videos on the internet. Some videos get really popular. Most of the other videos have the audience of 1, which is the person who uploads it. Some videos get to 194 million, and those people become stars. Just think what it has done to the entire discovery process of talent in the TV, in the music industry. It has changed it. So it changes the entire cost structure of how that industry operates. But more importantly, for what we do, the internet also changes how we engage with consumers. Because the 2 things that the internet offers is something that no other media offers. The first thing that the internet offers is what we call interactivity. You can't interact with any other media. Yes, you can by, tougher routes. You can see an ad on TV and make a phone call. But the internet is for the first time when you can pause your content and interact with the ad. You can't do that in any other media. You can't press the ad in the newspaper. You can't do pretty much anything with radio advertising. So most other forms of advertising are broadcast. The internet form of advertising is an interactive form of advertising. And the second thing that the internet does, it allows you to be personal, which means I can watch a different ad, you can watch a different ad, she can watch a different ad. And that changes the way advertising is going to be dealt with on the internet, most fundamentally. And I think in the next 5 to 8 years, the biggest revolution we're going to see as it relates to the internet is going to be the proliferation of online video. And that's going to happen because our TVs are going to get connected. So far we have connectivity in our phones, we have connectivity in our computers, we have connectivity on our tablets. But I think we come to a point where our televisions become connected to the web. And when the television becomes connected to the web, then what do we have? We have many screens that interact with us, and you'll be able to see advertising on any screen that you want, because at the end, advertisers are excited about getting in touch with me as a user. They don't really care which screen, which form of media they get in touch with me. So if you believe that, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a fundamental change in the way advertising operates. Today, the way it operates is we have a very strong media buying set of people, and we have a very strong set of people who do creative work. And they work closely together. So they work with an advertiser, they figure out what kind of creative they want to deploy, they figure out what kind of media they want to get. But still, there are 2 different entities we work with. In the future, we think that process becomes one, because all the internet media is a very different set of media. And it's very hard to decide how to get a Facebook campaign to work on Google, or how to get a YouTube campaign to work on Twitter, how to get a Twitter campaign to work on search. So you have to have a very good sense of the media you're buying, and you have to have a very good sense of the creative process you're going to deploy to make advertising work. So in that environment, in the environment where the world is getting full of technology, in an environment where we have the world's largest frictionless information, communication, and distribution network, how can we operate as businesses in the 22nd century? So I have 3 ideas for you. The first idea is we all have to become smarter. What I mean by becoming smarter is that there's phenomenal amounts of data available on users in whatever business we operate. So I was having this conversation earlier this morning with a gentleman who runs Fiat, and we were talking about how in the future it'll become important for people like Fiat to have a very good idea of their users. In the past, they relied on dealership networks. The dealers had the customer relationship. They were selling their cars through a channel. And they had some information about the user, but they didn't have as much of a direct interaction with the user as they could. Today, they have phenomenal campaigns in the online space where they actually interact directly with the user. They collect a lot of information about the user. And all that information can be useful. Just knowing exactly what your users are doing, how they use your technology, how they use your cars, that gives you a very good idea not only how to sell them more cars, but also gives you tremendous amounts of consumer insights, how to make better cars. And I think the number one thing that is going to become important in the next 5 to 10 years is data. Now, we come from a technology background at Google, so it's interesting for us that we talk about data. But we think the number one thing that is going to define whether a company succeeds or does not do as well in the next 10-year time frame is how well do you understand your customer? And to understand your customer, do you understand all the data you have about your customer? I don't think it's enough to run campaigns and have your fan pages and likes or run campaigns and get better CPC. I think it becomes really important to have customer databases, to understand your customer, take that data, create analytics out of it, and understand exactly how that data can do you more good in your product development process, in your process how you design new and great services. The second thing I think which is interesting for everyone is, second hint is we have to become braver. We have to think out of the box. And you think about innovation, you think about Silicon Valley, think about the starting of Google, think about the starting of Facebook, of YouTube, of many companies that have become household names. For some reason, they all get started by two guys, and they get started in a garage. So I know that garage space is very, very expensive in Sao Paulo, but maybe the people who are giving up their cars can rent their garages to people who start companies and make sure there are two guys in the garage. Somehow that formula works. Hewlett-Packard, Yahoo, YouTube, all these companies are started by two guys. But on a more serious note, the reason I'm saying you have to be braver is that if you step outside the normal way of thinking, you're more likely to create more innovation. In the world of innovation, if you think the answer is obvious, it's too late. So you have to have a unique insight. So you have to have the two guys in the corner raising their hand and say, no, I can do this differently. And that's what you need. Because if everybody else, 98% of the people, if everybody believes the same thing, unlikely you're going to succeed. You have to have an insight which is different, and you have to have some sort of a passion and belief which is different, because that's how change happens. Change happens when you believe in something, you believe that you think differently from other people, and you believe you can make that vision a reality. Now, it doesn't have to be too drastic. It can be a slightly different change. But if you think about how that operates, for example, we were having also this conversation earlier this morning. We lived that. At Google, we embodied that process. Not just when Google was started, but we do that every day. We sat down and said, we think there needs to be a fundamental change in the way mobile operating systems operate. So we decided to start Android. Now, when we started Android, nobody believed, including myself, that we could actually make an impact in the mobile operating system space. But clearly, we don't have to talk about the success of Android. We have some other interesting ideas which are slightly off the normal path. We have driverless cars we're working on. I'm sure you have heard of this. Have you guys heard of this? Okay, well, I got a chance to sit in one a few weeks ago. It's hard. For some of us who like a little more control, just a little more, it's hard to sit in a car and take your hands off the steering wheel and sit like this. Because it's designed for me to grab the steering wheel. And I had to sit like this and watch the car. It actually does a reasonably good job. It makes you feel a little useless, but I know that if it fails, I'm the backup, so it's okay. I'm the one that can be trusted. It still has to get some work done. But the reason I'm saying that is that that came from an insight that we believe that the response time of computers is 10 times faster than the response time of human beings. So actually, it's safer for a computer to drive the car than for us. Or, we talked about Google Glass. That was another idea for one of our founders who said, I think we should have technology in glasses so you can see a big screen slightly above your eye, and you should be able to do so many different things if you have computing power right where you can see it. Now, I'm not sure what the application is going to be, but clearly he's thinking out of the box, because the moment he says that, people say, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. That is a good sign. If you're an entrepreneur, if you want to think brave, you actually want 8 out of 10 people in the room saying, you're kidding me. You cannot be serious. If everybody in the room says that's a brilliant idea, you have a problem. Because that means they all believe it's a brilliant idea. That means there's something wrong with it. So I think the second hint I have for all of us who are conducting business in the future is A, let's get smarter about the data we use, and B, let's make sure that we are braver. And third, the last thing is think about it, the user, become more personal. I think the 21st century has been a century of industries which have still operated on creating goods, and there are lots of third parties involved in getting to the user. I think the fact that we have a frictionless information, communication, and distribution network allows us to get a lot more data about the individual, allows us to personalize the service, allows us to personalize the product a lot more to all of us than it has in the past. And I actually believe, if you think about the many brands that have been born in the last many years, a lot of those brands are internet brands, right? What are the big brands in the last 15 years? Amazon, Google, Facebook, YouTube. Can you think of a real-world brand that has become big in the last 15 years? Zara? You guys have Zara here? Okay, that's one brand. Any other brands? Tesla. Well, they only have a few thousand cars right now, but yes, it's becoming a car brand. Anything else? So again, the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of brands that have been created in the last 15 years have been mass market brands because they've relied on a frictionless system to get access to users. And if you think about them, most of them are very personal, right? Your Amazon experience is very different from mine. My Facebook experience is very different from yours. My YouTube experience is very different. My Google experience is very different. Google answers question I want it to answer for me. It answers different questions for you, and it answers different questions for her. So part of what has happened is that you have the ability to get very, very personal on the internet. And I think in the future, businesses will, first of all of us like things to be more personal, don't you? Don't you like it when you walk into a restaurant or a hotel, somebody calls you by your name and saying, hey you, come sit here, right? You don't like that. You want it to be personal. Well, guess what? We like that from businesses too. We like that from large businesses. We like that from small businesses. And for the first time, the internet allows us the opportunity to get more personal. You have lots more data. You have a lot more understanding. So the three big ideas for you guys are, it's time that when you go back to your desk, when you go back and think about these things, you have to think about how you can get more smarter about all the data that exists out there in the internet and all the data that exists out there about your own users in your businesses. You can go back and think out of the box. And thinking out of the box doesn't mean you quit your job and start a company. That's not the only way to think out of the box. That is definitely thinking out of the box, but that is a bit too drastic in certain cases. You can always think out of the box in whatever you do. You can always find a way to create innovation in what you do every day. And last but not the least, as you create innovation, as you think about data, you should think about the user. As I said, we at Google have operated now for 13 years. We started from a garage. We thought our founders had a great idea. Their great idea was, there's a lot of information going to be available on the web. Let's figure out a way that people can search most efficiently for it. And as you guys know, we built a search algorithm which took us 3 to 5 years to get to a point where a lot of people around the world used it. And we always focused on the user. We were always trying to solve the problem for the user. And as we did that, we figured out an advertising model that allowed us to make money. Over the last 13 years, we have since gone ahead and tried to create innovation. We have tried to create disruptions in technology where we believe we could add phenomenal amounts of value from our computing power. Whether it is taking a look at the mapping industry and saying, hey, we have an idea, we could get better maps. I was on a plane flying from San Francisco to Oviedo with Larry Page, and on the flight, we were looking, it was a clear day, we were looking down, we were flying over the desert in Nevada. He says, you know, on such a clear day, from a plane you can take pictures. I said, yeah. He says, when you can take pictures, if you get the plane close enough, you can get 5 to 10 times the resolution of data we get from satellites. I said, yeah. He says, if you get that kind of data, imagine how well we can get mapping technology to be compared to what we have today. I said, yeah. He says, and if you look, there are 60,000 miles of roads in the United States. What if you drove a car on every road? Then we'd know exactly where every road is. I said, yeah. And then in the course of the next hour, he computed roughly what it would take in number of cars that you'd need to drive, the number of planes you need to fly. He said, 6 months, we could do it for $15 million. And I never thought like that. right? Here he is thinking about how you can improve mapping technology by investing a certain amount of money because that's a good answer for the user, and you can do it totally differently in a different way. So part of it is we have tried to look at things in the world to see where and how can we apply technology to solving a large problem, and how does that end up in a better result for the user as well as for our business partners. We've done that with Android, we've done that with Chrome browsers, we've done that with mapping, we think we've done that with Gmail. When we started Gmail, there were 300 email systems in the world which existed, and one guy had an idea. My problem is I can't store my email. Let's find a better way of storing email, and let's find a better way of making it available to people. So we've had a history of innovation. We've had a history of partnership. We believe that we're still very early in the game of innovation. We think given there are so many trends happening on the internet, the last trend gives way for the next trend. So we couldn't have started search if there was not a lot of information available on the internet. Once that was available, we started search. We started search, a lot of more people came on the web. People decided that it's time that we're comfortable using our real identity on the web. So do you guys remember when you were not willing to put your credit card on the web? Do you remember those days? Or are you all comfortable now? Is anybody in this room not comfortable giving his credit card data on the web? I remember I was not comfortable 5 years ago. I was not willing to put my credit card data into any form. I would stop saying, do I really want to put my credit card data on the web? Now we all do it. Not only that, now we're all very comfortable identifying ourselves by our real name on Facebook, right? Or on Google+, I hope, for many of you, right? Or Orkut in the past. And there was a time where I remember not having my name on my email address. Now I can't imagine not having my name on my email address. It's kind of hard to send a CV from saying, cool guy, 123. I can imagine that the guy looking at it saying, oh, interesting name. So now we want our real name. So we're comfortable with it. So what happened was, as the web became more ubiquitous, as people started using the web, we got more comfortable putting our names in there. That allowed for social networking. We got more comfortable connecting with each other because we actually found our friends. Social networking gave way to the next wave. The next wave was people creating applications like Zynga and all sorts of applications that rely on underlying social networks. So we think we are on a wave where we're going to keep seeing a faster pace of innovation, a faster pace of technology. More and more information is coming on the web, and more are people relying on their friends, on social signals. So we think we are going from an information web to a people web. So we have so much more to look forward to, so much more innovation, so much more technology. In the process, we make our money through advertising, so we are furiously working with many of you and many of our partners, whether they're advertisers or they're agencies, to try and see how we can help in this evolution of the internet keep shifting advertising dollars to the online means, because that's where we think they're going to shift. That actually allows a way to fund that industry to create more and more innovation. So with that, I want to thank all of you for your partnership with Google. I know many of you work with us in different ways. I want to thank you for your creating innovation in your own businesses, because your creating innovation in your business allows us to innovate more in our business. And I also want to thank many of the large advertisers and agency partners who are working closely with Google. With that, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for welcoming me to Brazil.
Nossa próxima convidada é Margo Georgiadis, President of America's Operation, Google Inc.
So Nikesh spent a lot of time talking about business transformation, and I'm going to spend some time talking about something I know affecting everyone in this room, which is the fact that our consumers are transforming themselves and our businesses at the same time. And what we wanted to do today is just share some of the big trends that we see and what we view as the opportunities for businesses to take advantage of those, to reshape not only how their brands perform, but also how their businesses perform. Because when we live in an anytime, anywhere world where the consumer is more empowered than ever, as Nikesh talked about, where you have a supercomputer in your pocket or your purse, and you have a voice, right? You can launch a video. You can start a revolution. You can really challenge people in government, in business, to provide a great product and a great service. The demands on us as a company to listen and take advantage of that information, there's both risk and enormous opportunity to use that to your advantage. So what are the big trends that we see? If there's nothing else you take away, I hope you remember these. The first thing is that we live in a world where everything and everyone is online. And I'll share with you some statistics, because it's not just the US anymore, it's not just young people, it's becoming everyone. Consumers are hyper-informed, as I said earlier. They have so much access to information. What that means, though, is if I'm a retailer, the amount of information that customers often looked at before you get to the store floor is totally different than it was before. And I have many senior executives who talk to me and say, wow, if I really think about it, the training we give our sales associate in the store, is it really in step with where consumers are? And in most cases, they're talking about how the sales associate checks more computer power in their locker than they have with them on the store floor. And in general, the training's been about smiling, greeting, directing someone to an aisle, maybe giving some basic information, but it's not in step with where that consumer is, who's already looked at the options and is already prepared to make a decision and wants to go to the next level. The next piece that is increasing, and especially in Brazil, the growth rates are staggering, is we live in a four-screen world. What do we mean by that? We mean the TV, the PC, the tablet, and the smartphone. We now have 4 screens in our lives, and consumers increasingly will expect us to provide an experience that's liquid across those screens, and we'll talk about that. And because people have the ability, as Nikesh talked about, to capture the moment on their phone and share information or look at videos, the velocity of sharing of information and ideas has never been faster. That creates an enormous opportunity for brands to take advantage of that opportunity. And lastly, at the end of the day, though, consumers expect extraordinary as the new ordinary. We'll share some kind of breakout business models that we think may be inspiring as you challenge yourself on your own business. So when I say everyone and everything is online, what does that mean, right? There's 2 billion people on the web today, another billion expected by 2015. That's 40% of the world's population. Good news for Brazil, 40% of Brazil's population already is online and growing all the time. How many people in this room wouldn't leave home without their phone? Anybody leave home without your phone? Anybody think about when you wake up, the first thing you do is you pick up your phone? Anyone have your spouse visit you and says, no phone in the bedroom, right? I mean, we live in a time where we almost have to restrain ourselves as consumers not to be always connected, right? To focus on our kids, not to be at the playground on our phones, right? It's a real challenge, and it's something we have to deal with. But we also have this opportunity as marketers, and I'm just going to share a few statistics with you, to take advantage of this engaged consumer who's online. So Brazilians are online about 50 hours a month. 36% of Brazilians spend between 14 and 20 hours online every week. And in the evening, more people are online than watching television. I don't think we've all realized how fast this has changed. And what are they doing? They're doing everything. They're researching information. They're looking at options. And increasingly, they're shopping. In 2012, Brazil will have 43 million e-consumers that spend 22.5 billion reals online. And these are moments that matter to people. These are the moments when they're shaping their decisions, and we have to be there in step with them. So let me talk about some of the things that are enabled by this massive sharing of information. I think about it as a focus group of the world every day. We're creating this huge marketplace for intent. When people search for something or they look at content online and videos, what is that telling us about their intentions, about what's important to them? Let me just take a simple example that you might not have thought of. This is telecom service-related searches in Brazil. And what it shows is there's been a 60% increase in the rise of people looking for service information related to their mobile phone service online. How many people in this room are in the telecom industry? Anybody? Do you guys look at this data? It's incredibly helpful and powerful because it tells you a bunch of things. It says, first of all, people start on the web. When they have an issue, right, do you tend to say, let's look at that online. Let's go online, see what it says, right? You're not picking up the phone anymore. You're going online because it's faster, and consumers like to feel empowered and self-serve. And what we see is the best companies in telecom in the US are listening to this data, and they're using it to transform their business. Let me give you a couple examples. So they'll look at this data, and what they'll do is answer the question. So they'll deep link the consumer immediately to the answer to the question in their site. They'll update the information on their site so it's more relevant to the questions that are asked the most often. They'll provide videos on things that get asked very often that maybe are kind of hard to explain in text. It's a lot easier to show somebody how to do that. That's a great customer experience. In the past, right, the only people looking at that data were probably people trying to acquire those customers. They were siloed in the marketing department, and they were probably surfacing them an ad to get a new cell phone service because they were searching for something related to telecom or their brand. They were not answering the question. Now you got to break down those silos, right? Is it marketing, sales, or service? You can't have an e-commerce department. You have to, as Nikesh talked about, you got to understand that data and use it to empower your business to be in step with that consumer. You got to break down those silos and look at that as insight and information that can be used in marketing, sales, or service, or even your operations. So just to continue on the telecoms example, right, the simplest thing you can do is deep link them to the answer. That's actually reducing their customer service costs by 20% because it's really expensive to do a phone call. It's also much higher customer satisfaction, so it's improving retention rates. But if you look at those questions, you can also back up and you can improve the in-store training. So if you have certain devices that tend to get a lot of searches and have more issues, you can improve the setup of those devices when the consumer walks out the door, so they don't have the problems in the first place. You can back all the way up to the manufacturer. In some cases, if certain features have repetitive issues, do you improve the information on the setup or even just change the features altogether? So if you think about the ability that we now have to gather real time in this marketplace for intent, what's going on with consumers, I think it's transformational for business if you're listening. And I think what's going to happen, as Nikesh talked about, is the businesses that are not using this to their advantage will get behind. So if you think about this world where the consumers are volunteering all this information because they're online all the time, we now have this consumer who's hyper-educated and informed. They can get information fast and easy. They expect it. So we've done a lot of research saying, what does that look like? And what we see is consumers are researching, doesn't matter the category, they're looking at information. They've doubled the amount of sources. They've gone from 5 to 10 sources on average that they're looking at before they make any purchase. And it's true across categories. We did the research because we thought, well, maybe it'd only be in travel, in financial services, big ticket purchases, right, automobiles. But what we found, it was everywhere. It was even in consumer products, in fashion, in consumer goods, right? Maybe not the 15 that you might look at when you're making a big ticket purchase, but you're still looking at 6, 7, and 8. Even if you're looking for recipes in the food, right? A lot of people are looking for ways to save money, to make their budget go further, to try to have that great party that they always wanted to, and they want to aggregate all that data and think about the best choices for their menu or for their budget. And so what we're seeing is people are using that web to empower themselves. And if we're in that conversation, if we join it, as they start that journey on the purchase process, amazing things can happen. So this is an example from L'Oreal. Anybody heard of BB cream in the audience? Women? No? So BB cream is a product. It's called Beauty Balm. Started in the 1960s, has become one of the hottest products. Has all kinds of great effects for all the ladies in the room. It really makes your skin look great. It's the whole package, right? It cuts the oil shine, right? It makes everything look great. It's tinted, right? It's like a one-stop shop. So women are really excited about this. It's got a ton of buzz. And L'Oreal was listening, and they saw that 5 times the number of searches were happening on this product than were happening, literally, since the beginning of 2012. But what they noticed in parsing that out was that the vast majority of those searches were for information. People wanted, they said, this is cool, I've heard about this, I saw the print ad, I saw the TV commercial, but what really is this stuff? Is it really worth it? And so what they did was they answered the question, right? Both online, but also in the display, moments that the consumer, and they gave them a hot button that you can see in this example straight to those reviews. So they aggregated them for the consumer, and they took all the top authorities that they knew consumers went to the most often, and they put it all in one place to make it easy for consumers to say, wow, all the top authorities really think this is a great product, I should go get it. And they're really thinking about, in those category moments, as the consumer is shaping their thinking about a product, are you there? And it's something to ask yourself, no matter what category you're in, what are those moments that help that consumer along that process? Are you in that conversation? We also see a lot of missed opportunities. Neymar, everybody in this room knows Neymar, right? Kind of popular. Last week, right, had an amazing game, right? They destroyed the competition. Neymar scored 3 goals, right? It was 8-0, I think was the score. And the internet went wild, right? The next day was searches for Neymar. And there's 10 great brands, right, in Brazil that sponsor him and affiliate him with him and spend hours and hours of their day, right, about him. And none of them were there. None of them took advantage of that. I think about this as capturing moments that are being created around your brand and business where you can be part of the conversation and in step. People do it when they do the sponsorship because you want to have your billboard on, right, the game. But you're missing even more velocity in a wider audience online. And it's just something to think about. Again, what are the moments that are being created in your category? Are you using those opportunities to shape how the consumer thinks about your brand and your business? Another great example is the connection increasingly between online and offline. So as we live in this, right, anytime, anywhere world, people go online and then they go offline. But again, a lot of companies have it siloed in an e-com department, right? They're trying to get leads to have people buy something in an e-com department. How many people have an e-com department? And those are the guys that look at your digital data. Come on, this is true confessions. Be honest, right? None of you guys, you all have it across your whole business? I don't know. It's not a very truthful group. So the reality is, a lot of people are missing opportunity because they don't know how to connect the online and the offline world. So companies are increasingly doing research to understand the connection between the two. So this is just one example. In the case of Verizon, we know that when people are looking for a mobile phone, they go online, a lot of research in the category, they tend to sort it down to the 3 phones that they really want, right? And then they go to the store, and then they want to ask those last mile questions, little things about the package, right, the data plan, nuances about the phone. They want to touch it, right? They want to see it because it's, it's an important purchase, right? It's like a fashion accessory these days, right? How nice your phone is. And so you want to influence that conversation because they may want a certain phone, but they can get it from more than one carrier, and you want to be the carrier that they choose. So you want to get involved in that conversation, but when you do, it's online, but you get a 5-to-1 impact offline. And now with mobile phones, there's even a bigger opportunity because if I'm now standing outside the store or I'm in the neighborhood and I start looking for something, as a business, you have the opportunity to say, and by the way, I'm 2 minutes away from where you are and I have it in stock. Would you like to come by, right? And this has been an extraordinary opportunity, and you're getting 10 to 20 times the conversion rates. So this concept of how the world is connected and the opportunities it's creating for you as a business, not to have e-commerce siloed, to really understand this connection between marketing, sales, and service, and these moments where you can engage the consumer in a meaningful conversation to drive preference for your brand and business are like never before. So let's talk about the 4-screen world. Again, the 4 screens that are in our lives, the TV, the PC, right, the tablet, and the smartphone. You've got these 4 screens. So what's going on? And again, let me share a few facts with you that I think might be helpful to put all this in context. So when people are hyper-connected and hyper-informed, the biggest shift has been this growth of the smartphone. And I know it's still developing in Brazil, but let me show you some of the facts. We've hit a tipping point in the marketplace over the last 18 months, and I think this accelerated faster than even we at Google. We made a big bet on mobile with Android, but I don't think we could have imagined how quickly the adoption rate would occur. And we all know what happens when there's real value added to consumers' lives. Right? As we all know, we don't want to leave home without our smartphone because it really adds value to our lives. We've now hit the point where globally, 54% of all phones shipped are smartphones. I don't think any of us expected it to accelerate. It was only in the US, 36% last year. We've already passed 50% in the US. Transformational. And worldwide, device shipments for smartphones exceeded PCs, 500 to 350 in 2011. And in just a couple of years, we expect that ratio to be 2 to 1. And I was having dinner with some Brazilian colleagues last night where they talked about how a lot of people are going straight to the smartphone or the tablet because it's faster, it's easier, it's simpler in their lives, and there's some real advantages that are driving consumers there. So I think how this happens even in Brazil will be really interesting to watch. Here you've got 19% smartphones, but people expect that to double over the next year and keep rising at a very fast rate. So how do you take advantage of that? The other thing we're seeing is that screens are complementary. And again, all these patterns are just emerging, but it's something to really think about as you shape how you involve consumers in a conversation about your business and your brand. So what this is essentially a daytime map in the US of how people use different screens in their lives. The blue line is the PC, the red line is the tablet, and the green line is the smartphone. And I think what's really compelling about this, and it just makes sense, is that the PC is the device that you use at the office. It's the primary device you use during the day, right, for the things that you're doing. But then at night, what we're seeing is people are on television, but they're on their tablet or their smartphone at the same time. They're using them together. In fact, we saw during the Olympics on the primetime coverage in the US that 50% of the searches for the Olympics were on a smartphone exactly in the moment that they were watching television. People are using the screens together. They're complementary. The other thing we can see is if you just take any, we have a show called the Emmys where we award people, right, for the best of the best in the movie industry. And so when you do that, we can literally see the people, right, on the Emmys or the Super Bowl that run their commercials. We can literally see the searches spiking at the minute that they're running the commercial. We can see whose are more popular. We can see if the consumer, if the commercial decided to have like a star in it, did the star become the star, and that's what consumers searched for, or did the product become the star? And in which cases did the star dwarf the product? And it really didn't help, right, to have it there. And so it's amazing what you can learn. And then when the consumer's going online, are you answering the question that they're looking for? Or are you showing them your organization? Is it some e-com department that's gold on converting people and getting leads, and you spent all this great TV advertising to tell them how great your brand is, and then the consumer goes to search online about that brand attribute, right? Say you're a credit card company, you got them excited about your travel rewards product, and they go online and they want to understand about that feature. And typically, we see companies answering that question with a discount. They don't even talk about the brand feature. They're not even thinking about the fact that that consumer, right, is in a different moment. They want to know about the brand. They may not even be ready to make the purchase, and you're not answering the question. You're not engaged where they are, and you're showing the consumer your organization. And we see this over and over. And when we live in a multi-screen world where the consumer, right, is doing these things in tandem, are you really thinking about how you're orchestrating that conversation across the screens? And for those that take advantage of it, we see it as a huge opportunity. For those that aren't listening and managing and thinking about the world that way, they're in silos, huge missed opportunity, and potentially you can even undermine your brand. Because if you run a lot of great television commercials and the next thing they do is go online and all you talk to them about price is about price, you're not really getting across the brand benefits that you're working to achieve. Another thing that people have talked a lot about is what do multi-screens do to behavior? So this is an example from the Olympics. We invested a lot working with the big providers during the Olympics, what would happen? And we monitored in depth, because they made a big bet. If we put live streaming of all the events online, well, fundamentally, we lose engagement at delayed primetime TV coverage, right? Particularly in the US, we had a different time zone, and you wanted to provide the access to the events to people who wanted to watch it live. They had a passion for the sport, right? And would they wait? But at the same time, you had a lot of consumers that would want to come home in the evening and watch it on television and get the edited version, right, from the network. And what happened? And what this data really showed is that multiple screens are actually driving greater intensity of engagement. So the people that watch TV only, that's the blue bar. If you watch TV in one more screen, you watched 53% more content. TV plus 2 was 126% more content. And people that watched live streamers, 86%. So I think we're now getting to the point where people are recognizing that consumers have a passion for consuming content. I know Brazilians love content more than anyone. You guys have made YouTube, right, incredibly successful here because you love, right, to share your own ideas, and you love to find great stars, and you love to get engaged. And so this, for us, is really helping people push the thinking around what does content really mean, right? As Nikesh talked about as well before, how do you, across the 3 screens, 4 screens, think to yourself about how you can engage consumers in different ways as they go to the next level? Because sometimes in the live stream, what they want is the moment, right? Or they want to go behind the scenes, or they want to have a different kind of conversation, or they want to get involved in the conversation. And are you using that to your benefit? I think I just lost my... The next example I wanted to talk to you about is how people are doing great things to activate their brand across the 4 screens. And I thought one of my favorite examples is what Nike did, just to stick with the Olympics theme because it's recent, and my guess is that you've seen this campaign yourself. Nike has become one of the world's best brands at using digital platforms, right? They did it. Did anybody here see the Nike Write the Future campaign they did around soccer? Sound familiar to anybody? So they did it again at the Olympics. They took the same concept in 2012, and they weren't even an Olympic sponsor. In fact, Adidas, right, was a sponsor. Nike's brilliant, right, at allowing themselves to be present in the moment even when they don't have the sponsorship. Remember all those yellow shoes on the track stars? Anybody notice those? And did you say to yourself, what the heck are these yellow shoes? What's with the neon shoes, right, on all the athletes? And you really notice Nike a lot more than Adidas, right? They were a lot more present on TV, but they did a lot more than that. They thought about what their brand really means, which is just do it. But how do you make that relevant to everybody, right? And they founded their campaign on a compelling insight that everybody has a body, and if you have a body, you're an athlete. And sports fans are people. They don't want to just sit and watch. They do want to feel like they can participate. They felt the passion of the Olympics, right? We all did. We all were emotionally connected to those athletes. We wanted them to win. But Olympians aren't the only ones that want to aspire to be great. They're not the only ones that have dreams and goals for themselves, right? Anyone who plays a sport, exercises, aspires to be better, right? How many people in this room exercise regularly, right? We all care. We want to be healthy, but it's all in our own ways. And what Nike did was go to the essence of that. You can find your greatness, just do it. And they thought about to themselves, they don't just sell sports equipment and apparel. So when Nikesh talked about being personal, what they did is take a moment and they thought about, how do I bring it to the consumer in a very relevant way? And what they did was they created an arc around this concept using the power of the 4 screens to invite the consumer into this conversation. So just before the Olympics started, they invited the consumer into this movement about finding your greatness. They took that moment when there was all the buildup about the athletes, everybody in their own countries talking about their athletes and how they wanted to find their greatness, and they riffed on that in a relevant way for their brand for the everyday consumer. Can we go back to the slides? So they invited the consumer into the conversation, and they did it across all digital platforms. They used YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, Google. They built a fan base for their campaign. They used Twitter and Tumblr and Blogger to get a conversation going that was relevant to everyone. And then, as the Olympics started the day before, they blasted the world across every single country, 25 countries, 12 languages. They ignited the conversation across devices. There's nowhere you could go on TV, on YouTube, without hearing this message. And it was so relevant. 12 language, 250 million impressions, 5 million views, and people understood the passion for sport and the connection point with this brand. But they didn't stop there, because what digital allows you to do is extend that a step further. They maintained the dialogue, and they invited consumers into a relationship. They created a website, and they asked people to personally come and set up their goals, and they got 8.5 million people, literally in days, to sign up on Nike Plus, to set their own greatness goals, and allow them to draw them into a conversation. It's not about the product. It's about the emotional connection and how this business and this brand is committed to helping you transform your life and achieve your goals, big or small, whatever they are. And at the end of the day, for me, this is about what the digital world enables. To me, it's the golden age of marketing. It's a canvas for you to paint on. You still, right, have to know what your brand is about. The essence of your brand, the essence of your audience. That's why Nike's so good at this, because Nike and Wieden & Kennedy, their agency, are good at getting to the heart of the matter. But then the second thing is they didn't create advertising, they created content, right? They focused on the little kid jumping off the board. There are many, many of those iconic images that really emotionally connect with you. They created content that could be shared, that could be talked about, not advertising, right? Notice there's not a shoe in that advertising. There's not a shirt. There's nothing. It's just focused on the essence of what they're trying to accomplish. And then they made it liquid across all. It could go across all channels, all devices. But each time it had a new interpretation, and it was orchestrated. It had a beginning, a build-up, a blast, and then a continuation. And we'll see them continue to riff on this concept over time. And I think that's what great digital marketing is about. It's about going to the heart of the matter and bringing the consumer into a conversation and igniting, right, your brand in a different kind of way with consumers. And that's what they're looking for. And we see the people that do it are consistently successful. So in that world, as you see, choice and sharing are accelerating. And this offers a huge opportunity for the brands that decide to take advantage of this passion consumers have to get into the conversation. YouTube, as you know, is on fire. 72 hours are uploaded every minute. Over 1 million videos are watched, and 100,000 videos are shared. It's unbelievable how this has taken off and will continue. In Brazil, YouTube is the #1 online video destination. It's the #2 search tool, and it's the 6th biggest site on the Brazilian web. So we've come to a different point, and people love to share. So let me just show a couple of examples. How many of you have seen this video about the baby? Right? I love this video because the reason why I love it is a financial services company used this to talk about going paperless. And Africa went in and they were looking for inspiration. I remember talking to one of their chief creatives when I was in Cannes. He talked about how they went to the web looking for inspiration for their campaigns because They just finished integrating the two companies together after their acquisition. They'd greatly expanded their footprint, right, of local branches. They wanted to tell the consumer that we're part of your life, we're in your neighborhood, we get who you are, we want to be part of your life, and we can do meaningful things, right, that help you. And Africa went and looked for user-generated content. They looked for things that were popular on the web. They looked for ideas. And this, I think, as you guys know, was somebody tearing up a job rejection letter. But it was such a magic moment, and they repurposed it to be about the joy of going paperless. And it was so memorable, and it was shared so quickly. And I think it speaks to the opportunity to be inspired by what consumers already love on the web, but use it in a new context, in a new way, to empower your brand. Another way to do it is to be on trend. I'm sure you guys recognize some of the guys here, right? You have the whole UFC movement. It's becoming increasingly popular, right? Gillette wanted to have some fun against their competition, and they created this fun video with clear stars, right, that everybody would recognize. And it just created energy, and it went wild. It vastly exceeded their expectations. They thought it would generate a few million views. It generated 20 million. So I think that when you think about the power of digital to create these kind of arced campaigns that draw the consumer in, to take advantage of the opportunity to learn from the consumer, to go to the web and see what they love, see what they share, right, and create or jump on trends that are exciting, that can allow your brand to be part of the conversation, right? Consumers expect a lot from us because we are learning a lot from them. And I don't know about you guys, but I remember when Wi-Fi first came out on planes, I just thought this was an amazing thing. Especially I fly a lot, right, between New York and California, and these are long flights in the US. And oh my God, magically, if I could spend that 4 or 5 hours and get a lot of work done, clear out my inbox, right, I'm just delighted. But then when I would get on a plane that didn't have Wi-Fi, I was just furious, right? After 3 months, it became habit for me, and I felt like, oh my God, this plane is wasting my time. Like, how could they not upgrade their planes, right? And the velocity at which our expectations as consumers continue to change is extraordinary. Because once you use technology and it's making your life better and faster, the expectations do continue to rise. And as Nikesh said, we just have to be embracing of that. We have to understand the velocity of expectations. And some companies are using this to just rethink their whole business model. I don't know how many of you have seen this example. It's been around, but I love it because in one snapshot, it tells the story of how to rethink your business. This is from Korea. Tesco was there with their Home Plus stores. They didn't have as big a footprint. They had a big online presence, but they were struggling to get traction. And they said, wait a minute. Consumers in Korea work more than anybody else. They tend to spend a lot of time traveling from home to work, right? There are many single families, right? So how do I make my life easier? And they said, wait a minute, we can just take the walls of a subway station where you're waiting. We can take that wasted time and we can turn it into something valuable. And why not, right? This isn't even expensive, right? With smartphone technology, they can just take the walls of the subway station and make them a grocery store. And you click on it, and when you get home, it's delivered to your house. You tell them what time you want it, and they bring it to you. How great is that? Right? It's thinking different. It's putting the consumer at the front. As Nikesh said, are we being user-centric as we evolve our business models? And are we really solving compelling problems for our consumers? They took the same idea into the Gatwick airport, because they said, hey, you go on a trip, and then you come home, right, and the fridge is empty, right? It might moldy if you left it there, or empty, right? And you need something to eat. How great is it to be able to go, when you're at the airport, go to the kiosk, do the same thing, and when you get home, you've got all the things you need in your fridge, right? How many times you come back from a business trip, you're tired, and you're thinking, the last thing I really want to do is go to the store, but you have to do it, right? Because you got to fill the fridge again. And these are just the ways that I think people are taking technology and using it to transform consumers' lives and their businesses in new and interesting ways. And as Nikesh said, if you don't embrace the data, if you don't embrace the consumer, you're not going to be as successful in a digitally driven world. So what are we trying to do as Google in all of this, right? You might wonder sometimes, you read about us, we're in all these different areas, And where are we trying to help, right, you make sense of all this? And I think the first thing we've done is try to make bets across the spectrum on platforms that allow you to, in a scaled way, reach consumers, right? Whether it's when they're searching for information, right? They're going to the web and looking at different sites. They're looking at content and video. They're on their mobile phone or their tablet. They're going to make a purchase, which is why we're so interested in local and maps, right? And really having wallets so that we can complete the circle, right? These are the reasons that we're in these things. And consumers are social, so we want to give people an opportunity to connect. So we look at our job as creating these platforms that let you connect with consumers anytime, anywhere, in a scaled way. So we're creating this canvas that you can paint on, and you're able to understand, learn, and engage with consumers in the moments that matter to your business. And then what we want to do is help take all this technology and this change and help make the web work for you. And we think about it in 3 ways. We want to help you win in the moments that matter. Every business is different. The moments that matter to your business, depending on how it's positioned or your product, what are those moments that really matter from beginning, middle to end? Second, how do we take this wealth of insight about what consumers are doing and help you make better decisions about where and how you engage with those consumers and are more accountable about the marketing dollars you spend, what you get for them? And lastly, how are we continuously innovating and building platforms that let you go bigger faster, right? Gone are the days, I have many conversations with IT departments where people want to have their own in-house version, but when technology is changing as fast as it is, when you can leverage platforms that are scalable and paint on that canvas, it lets you go bigger faster and get that reach so that you can focus on the magic of the customer engagement, right? Not the technology. It's our job to make that easier for you. So that's really what we're about as a company. We thank you for your time. We thank you for being here. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Agora, chamamos ao palco, por gentileza, Robert Kyncl, Global Head of Content, Google Inc.
Hello. I hope you're not too tired by now. I'll promise to make it brief. Like Nikesh, I was born abroad. I was born in the Czech Republic, behind the Iron Curtain. And I left Czech Republic about 20 years ago when the Iron Curtain fell. And I came to the United States, got married to someone from Dominican Republic, and I have 2 beautiful daughters growing up in the United States. Today I'm here in Brazil talking about digital content. So my life has become global. As Nikesh mentioned, today it takes a lot less to become global and build a big global brand. It takes 3 years, 5 years to get to hundreds of millions of viewers, hundreds of millions of customers. And the world is changing in front of our eyes. So I'm here today to talk about one brand that had a contrarian theory which was embraced by Google upon its acquisition. Yes, I'm talking about YouTube. And the contrarian theory has propelled it to unimaginable heights in just short 7 years. Short 7 years, phenomenal growth, phenomenal success. Just in the last year, YouTube generated 1 trillion views. That's 140 views for every single person on this planet. Now, those numbers are pretty hard to imagine, yet the videos, they're quite easy to understand. Just this once, Gustavo da Cunha, right here from Brazil, huge success. He taught 3 million people on YouTube how to serenade Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine. A lot of people are really interested in having that skill. They are learning it right from him. Phenomenal. Kate, who didn't watch this wedding? Kate got married, 72 million people watched it on YouTube in 188 countries. Unbelievable numbers. The Olympic Games, they're coming here 4 years, can't wait. We were there this summer in London, and we were there with YouTube, streaming to 64 countries around the world, countries like India, Singapore, Nigeria, countries where people didn't see their countrywomen and countrymen competing in their Olympics before, and now they could, thanks to YouTube. We got more than 250 million views on the Olympics events, and at the peak, got more than 500,000 people streaming on YouTube at the same time, which is about 5 times the capacity of Stadio Marcana, I hear, big stadium, huge audience on YouTube, all watching the Olympics at the same time. Batman was the biggest blockbuster movie of this year. Yet, in just a few days, there was this little 30-minute film on YouTube that even more people watched than Batman on YouTube. Coney, 2012, a movie portraying a dictator in Africa who is not so nice to his people. The world watched it on YouTube, bigger audience than Batman. These are unbelievable numbers. Now, viral sensations, political movements, world-changing events, all of those are happening and they're captured on YouTube. YouTube reflects us, it reflects life. And in the makeshift studios all around the world, from Brazil to Czech Republic to America, people are creating content. They're creating in makeshift studios, in professional studios. They're creating not just individual videos, but they are creating channels, and they're creating audiences. And they're super serving these audiences the same way that HBO or Kombache did over the last couple of years, or a couple of decades, to be correct. And these audiences are growing, and they're getting quite big. If you took all the TV channels in the United States, and if you took channels on YouTube and ranked them together, the top 5 channels on YouTube would be in top 20 on TV. So these are not just internet sensations that one day may become big. There are internet sensations which are big today. But enough about America, because there's a lot of local relevance to what's happening. In Brazil, and in most countries around the world, if you look back 20, 30 years, there used to be just a handful of broadcast networks, SBT, Globo in the US, CBS, NBC, etc. And those commanded pretty much 100% market share of viewership of television. And then what happened? Cable came, satellite came, telcos came, a whole new platform which gave birth to a whole new set of brands which programmed to specific interests. And those brands were the new cable channels that got born. And over time, over the next 20, 30 years, these channels started to command 75% of viewership, not exact for Brazil, not exact for every country, but on the average, if you look around the world, roughly 75% of viewership resides in cable networks. They migrated the viewership, and the dollars slowly followed that. So we believe that we're on the cusp of a major transformation with the internet connecting televisions and tablets and phones to audiovisual content, and therefore allowing for many other new programming brands to be born on this platform, just like they did on cable and satellite and telco over the last 20, 30 years. And if you believe that the internet will be to cable what cable was to broadcast, then you could say that perhaps in 8 to 10 years, 75% of all content, of all audiovisual content, would be transmitted over the internet. And if that's true, that's an incredibly powerful thought, because there will be many, many new programming brands that will bring enjoyment to viewers, and these viewers is the audience that you are trying to reach. So it is the right time to start paying attention. Sorry. Lots of great successes coming from Brazil. That is why we're here. I'm forgetting the names of the founders. I had them memorized. Marcos Luporini is one of those. I'm forgetting the other guy. In 2006, they created this wonderful character, posted one video, and in just 6 months, they got 500,000 views. And that was just the beginning. You know, by September 2012, they amassed 500 million views. And in the meantime, they built a major character, merchandising business. They licensed to companies like Netflix, where, by the way, I used to work for 7 years. And they have just created a phenomenal brand that is extending not just here in Brazil, but also all around the world. Phenomenal success, and we're so happy to see it happen right here in Brazil. Felipe Neto, a blogger who started on YouTube roughly 5 years ago and built a phenomenal following. And in the last 6 months, he launched a comedy network on YouTube. And that comedy network already has 600,000 subscribers. And to put it in context, subscribers are free on YouTube. These are people, I want more from this person, or I want more from this brand. I want to see more content. So they consume more. Justin Bieber, who is the king of YouTube, has about 1.8 million subscribers. Felipe, in just 6 months, got 1/3 of what Justin did in 3 years. Phenomenal success. He's helped with tremendous velocity of the internet and connected devices, but it's just unbelievable to see this kind of success coming out of right here in Brazil. And it's not just individuals, it's also companies. Just speaking about music, you know, this is a very music-driven country, and we have a lot of great business with the labels. The music labels, for decades, had this cost item on their P&L. It was called music videos. Music videos just cost money, and they promoted sales of records, and that's how it was conceived of. In 2007, they all embraced YouTube, and suddenly, just like that, they switched a cost item to a profit item on their P&L. Suddenly, they're making money off music videos, and music video is not the promotional thing, it is the thing that people come and watch. Great, great business, great innovation, great courage. You know, one of the 3 things that Nikesh spoke about, courage was one of those, courage to innovate and think outside the box. The music labels certainly did. And then they didn't stop there. They also experimented and expanded the business with sound recordings of all of their artists, which are licensed to YouTube, and users simply attach them to videos that they like and put together. And this has become a big business as well. An example, Michel Tello. Sorry. Isuchi de Pego? I don't know if I got it right. His song is so popular, 800 million views on YouTube, but half of those comes from fan tributes to him. So half are the professional video created, and the other half is from fan tributes. And they're so popular. They're fan tributes by Israeli soldiers, by Rafa Nadal, by Cristiano Ronaldo. All of these folks are creating fan tributes. There was U.S. Olympic swim team was doing Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe. All of these fan tributes are hugely popular, and that is a brand new opportunity for all of you to capture the audience where they are at the most amount of enjoyment, something that's truly unique and it's new. This is where your audience is, and this is where you need to be. Now, huge amount of content is flowing to YouTube, whether it's content that we're licensing or whether it's content that users are simply uploading to us and it's organized into great channels. In 2011, we kicked off with streaming Carnival to the world and got 22 million views on it in just a few days. Phenomenal success. Then we followed with Rock in Rio earlier this year with 11 million views. Again, great success, and we're so proud to bring the wonderful Brazilian culture to the world in just a few days, just a few clicks, millions of people being able to experience it. My niece in the Czech Republic will probably not get to go to see Rock in Rio or the Carnival. She can enjoy it from her home, on her phone, tablet, computer, TV. That is amazing. But it's not just individuals, it's not just events. There are also big programming brands that are coming to YouTube and start creating great content. And one of those brands is one of the most beloved brands on earth, Disney. We struck a partnership with Disney 6-7 months ago, and they started to develop great presence on YouTube for a lot of their great content. Disney is a beloved brand all around the world. Everybody knows what it means. Most people love it. We love the fact that they're working with us and innovate. You know, they've always been on the cutting edge of technology and content and figuring out how to mesh them. They've done a phenomenal job so far. I have one more, which is Sofia Vargara. She's a very interesting case. She launched a brand new channel on YouTube called Nuevon, just very, very new. She's just starting. And she's promising to show a different side of herself that most people don't know. But what's really interesting about her is that unlike every other Latin star over the last 20, 30 years, she didn't have to conform. She didn't have to Americanize in order to make it in America, in order to make it in Hollywood. America embraced her for her accent, for her culture, for who she is. And this is new. This is tectonic plates shifting. And I had to Americanize. I came to the United States and I had to do everything possible to Americanize to make it there, just like all of the other Latin stars. She didn't. And that change is very similar to the change that is happening in audiovisual content. We're all embracing online video the same way America is embracing Sofia for what it is, and we're moving there very, very fast. I'm going to show you some of the great content that came to YouTube over the last year, because whether we want it or not, there is this tremendous desire to bring more and more exciting content to YouTube. There is tremendous pull by viewers, and we recognize that, so we started to pour a lot of fuel into that fire of creativity and demand, and we started to fuel content creation, and we started to fuel marketing. So here's a result of some of those efforts. But, you know, we're all internet guys. That's what we do. But I got to tell you one thing. We love TV. There's a lot of great content there. But there's also one thing that we love about it, which we learned from and are using it, which is how you find content. TV actually makes it very easy for you to find what you love. On YouTube, it has not been that easy over the past few years. So we really started to look at how TV does it and learn from it. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. There's really two things that you do when you watch content. One is you decide what you love. And the second one is what you play and where you find it to play it. What we did in December of last year is we decided to launch something that we call the guide on YouTube. And the guide allows you to tell us what you love, tell us what you love, save it to your guide, and then access it anytime you want on your phone, tablet, PC, wherever, TV. You have your personalized YouTube experience with the channels that you love. Suddenly our channel strategy and our user interface strategy are combining and bringing much better experience to users. And when that happens, when suddenly every time you log into YouTube and you know exactly that whatever you're going to watch is something that you love because you care about these brands, it can suddenly become part of your everyday life, morning, lunch, and evening. It's working, actually. It's really working. Since December, subscriptions have doubled. And we already had a very large number of those before. They've doubled. And every month, we have a 50% higher number of subscriptions. And every day, we have a 50% higher number of subscriptions than we had before December. So it's working. And subscribers are consuming twice as much as non-subscribers. So very powerful UI tool to do that. But I spoke about content, and I spoke about discovering content. There's one other thing that's missing, which all of you know very well, which is marketing. So a few months ago, I was standing on stage in the Beacon Theater in New York City, and I announced that we were spending north of $200 million in the next 12 months to promote our partners' content. When we see content that's working well, we start pushing it more so that it becomes more and more mainstream and has more and more customers, and they can reach more and more subscribers. Without that, we can't feed the content creators. We can't feed this wonderful ecosystem that is happening and that is moving online, and tremendous amount of great content that's being created. So I love you. But speaking of revenue, let me tell you what we're doing different from the TV networks. They do their jobs well and they have tremendous audiences, but it wouldn't really make sense for us to do exactly the same thing that the incumbents are doing. That's a really hard job and you don't really change the world. So as most of you know, because you're actually an incredibly progressive country that is innovating far ahead of many other countries around the world, you've embraced a format which we call TrueView very well. We're making ads optional to users. And it sounds like a really bad idea. It's great for users, bad for you, right? They skip them, they don't watch them, your brands don't get seen. Well, we believe that's wrong. We actually believe that it's absolutely the right thing to do. Because one of the complaints that users always had, and it could never be resolved because there was no consumer data and no two-way interaction, is the fact that ads were always seen as an intrusion on their enjoyment, as a friction. You know, and Nikesh spoke about frictionless distribution, frictionless world. Certainly ads have been viewed by users as friction. It's not trackable, really, who's watching, when they're watching on TV, if they go to the bathroom, etc. When ads are skippable, user doesn't like it, they skip it. If they love it, they watch it. You don't pay unless they watch. Novel idea. To us, that's a big deal. We take a lot of risk. You don't pay unless they watch. We have to spend money on content. If all the ads are skipped, we don't get paid. Not great for us. So we have to try really hard to make sure that we target the advertisements incredibly well. When we do that, and when you don't pay, when ads are not skipped, there's no waste in your system. And suddenly the age-old saying that you're wasting 50% of your money, you don't know which 50%, so you'll continue to do the same thing, goes away. Because you know exactly who's watching and who's engaging. And when that happens, if you pay a little extra, it's still savings because you don't pay for the waste. And when that happens, content creators are making more money, and when they make more money, they're creating more content naturally, and when they do that, more and more users are watching it, and again, there's more impressions and more opportunities for your ads to be displayed. So it's suddenly, we create this wonderful ecosystem of value around enjoyment of content without friction. And when we take the three constituents, the viewers, the advertisers, and producers, we really just put them into a beautiful virtual cycle that aligns everyone's interests. And we believe that that is a big deal. We believe that that will change the way advertising is consumed over the next decade. And we're pushing that incredibly hard. For us, TrueView already represents 65% of all in-stream ads on YouTube globally. It's 12 months into launching it. It's unbelievable how fast this is getting adopted. And when I travel all around the world, I hear about this every single day. People love it. Now, business in Latin America, and especially in Brazil, is phenomenal. There is massive consumer demand. There is great content supply, very audio-visual country. Everybody feels that YouTube is the right venue for them. There's a reason why Nikesh, Margo, myself are here. This is a very exciting market for us. But it's very interesting to also think about what is happening in the United States and then extrapolate it to the rest of the world. Here's one stat that I'll share with you that we haven't shared yet, which is in the United States, on in-stream ads, so if you strip away banners and if you strip away mobile, because we only started to monetize it recently, so if you simply do comparison to television, so computer-based in-stream ads, our revenue per hour watched is higher in the US than it is on cable in the US. That is a huge deal to us. We've never told the story because everybody always sees it mixed with impressions and from Nigeria and Russia and blended across display and video. So when you start isolating segments and compare them to real markets, you start seeing real data. And then when you look at this chart and you see we're exceeding cable and we're rising and we'll approach broadcast in a couple of years. Just think about what happens in the content creation ecosystem because there will be tremendous inflow of content because content creators will follow the money. That's what they do. That's what allows them to do their craft. So it's, as I look at it from my global role, I just can't wait for the day when the same happens in Brazil, in India, in Russia, in the UK, everywhere. So we're monitoring all of these trends, and we're just incredibly excited about the future that audio and video has for us. And when I mean us, I mean you and us, because there's just tremendous amount of consumer demand for it. Now, I should end on a really good note, which is a lot of your great ads have made it to our property. A lot of perceptions have been changed. The other day I was on YouTube and I was searching for something, and suddenly I see a skippable ad for Rolex. Rolex wouldn't be found dead 2 years ago with us. Big luxury brand, wouldn't want to work with us. Today they almost don't even ask us, and they're pumping their TrueView ads through YouTube. It was unbelievable to see them embrace us. So we're having a huge amount of fun, and we're building a great business for all of us. You can decide to lead and join us, or you can wait, and that's okay too. A lot of people do. But I guarantee you that the next 7 years will be a lot faster than the last 7 years has been for YouTube. So I challenge you to build a great next generation of channels together. I challenge you to build the next great big audiences together. Let's build brands together. Thank you.
Bom, a ideia do Think Performance é trazer para vocês uma realidade bem prática de como os anunciantes dos verticais de performance estão trabalhando com soluções Google. A gente vai ter 3 sessões, tá, daqui para frente. A primeira sessão é uma sessão que a gente vai falar de um caso de sucesso de trabalho de verba cooperada entre a indústria e o varejista. A segunda sessão a gente vai falar um pouco de como que anunciantes de performance usaram de maneira inovadora as plataformas do Google. Em terceiro lugar, a gente vai trazer um estudo inédito para vocês da McKinsey, onde a gente vai apresentar alguns insights de mercado que vão falar um pouco sobre as oportunidades que os varejistas têm com o digital, sendo eles e-commerce ou loja física. Começando no primeiro painel, eu vou convidar aqui ao palco o Vicente Rezende. Ele é diretor de marketing da Nova Pontocom. A Nova Pontocom é uma empresa resultado da fusão entre o Grupo Pão de Açúcar e a Casas Bahia. Hoje ela é uma empresa do Grupo Pão de Açúcar, responsável pelo e-commerce das 3 marcas, Extra.com, Ponto Frio e Casas Bahia. Junto com ele vai apresentar aqui no palco o Rodrigo Vidigal. Ele é diretor de marketing Cone Sul da Motorola Mobility. Eles vão falar para a gente como que a gente está trabalhando de uma maneira bastante eficiente os projetos de verba cooperada, né? Eu trabalho com varejo, né, há muitos anos já, e a gente sabe dessa prática, e não é nem só com varejista e indústria, né? A indústria de viagem, com cartão de crédito. Então, existe esse esquema de verba cooperada muito forte entre os anunciantes de performance. E o que a gente vem descobrindo é que a internet acaba sendo uma grande solução para esse tipo de investimento, porque você consegue ter o controle absoluto do que é feito e o resultado de vendas no final do dia. Então, a gente realmente convidou eles dois para apresentar um caso de sucesso para inspirar vocês das possibilidades que a gente pode trabalhar com esse tipo de projeto de verba cooperada. Com vocês agora, então, Vicente Rezende e Rodrigo Vidigal.
Sou Rodrigo Vidigal.
Bom dia.
Bom, pessoal, apresentar então esse caso, né, que a gente foi convidado aqui pela Google para apresentar para vocês. Contar só um pouquinho do contexto, como tudo começou. A Motorola é um dos players que vem trabalhando fortemente para aumentar a penetração de smartphones no Brasil, no mundo, como a gente viu nos slides da Margo. E, especificamente, em abril desse ano, a gente lançou uma campanha aqui no Brasil, uma campanha chamada Smartphone Já, com o Celton Mello, que teve 9 milhões de vídeo views no YouTube, muito já alavancada nos astros da Google, como a gente já vem trabalhando há algum tempo no Brasil, com resultados bem interessantes. E essa campanha teve como ápice o Dia das Mães, né, desse ano, e a gente teve um resultado excelente. E aí surgiu a questão de como manter o resultado de vendas que a gente tinha conseguido alavancar para o Dia das Mães após esse período de mães. E o dinheiro já tinha acabado, né? O dinheiro foi todo gasto na campanha. Mas a gente trabalha muito fortemente com os parceiros de varejo, Nova Pontocom, com o Vicente, com toda a equipe. E nessas conversas com a Google, a gente falou, olha, existe, né, o fundo cooperado, que é um fundo que a gente trabalha normalmente com investimentos offline, com os tabloides, com anúncios tradicionais. E a gente pensou, poxa, como tentar aproveitar um pouco desse tráfego que a gente conseguiu gerar na internet, dessa campanha toda com o Celton, e continuar mantendo o volume de vendas após o Dia das Mães, ou pelo menos o mais próximo disso. E a gente realmente teve um resultado que nos surpreendeu. Eu vou passar para o Vicente e contar um pouquinho como foi.
Basicamente, a gente viu a oportunidade, essa oportunidade é crescente, de levar mais tráfego para cada vez mais dentro do funil. A gente, varejista, sempre entende o processo de decisão de compra como um processo de funil. Quanto mais próximo do final do funil o cliente chegar, mais eficiente a gente vai ser. Então, quando a gente começa a contar com o apoio triangulado da indústria, o veículo e o varejista para fazer isso, para levar o tráfego para o final, mais eficiente a gente é. Essa campanha aconteceu primordialmente por uma questão, por proximidade. Acho que houve uma proximidade muito grande entre a equipe de performance da Nova, essa equipe é interna, a equipe da Motorola e a equipe do Google, que trabalha cotidianamente com a gente. Os resultados foram bastante interessantes. O objetivo era continuar o tráfego após o Dia das Mães, né? Como é que faz isso? O Dia das Mães é uma sazonalidade para a gente, acho que nem todo mundo aqui é varejista, talvez seja a segunda data mais importante do ano. No e-commerce, o Dia dos Pais encosta, mas para as nossas marcas, o Dia das Mães tem uma importância muito grande. Como é que mantém essa força de venda após o Dia das Mães? Então, cada um das partes trabalhando em conjunto foi responsável por viabilizar a ação da seguinte forma. A gente fez, basicamente, a gente fez todos os tipos de mídia do Google, principalmente link patrocinado e mídia display, retargeting, muito retargeting. Uma coisa muito legal que aconteceu foi o compartilhamento das listas de retargeting, ou seja, quem navegava nas propriedades Motorola juntava com quem navegava nas propriedades da Nova Pontocom e a gente conseguia uma abrangência muito maior para as campanhas de targeting. Interessante isso porque fez com que, em continuando essa campanha, a gente já parta de uma roda girando, ou seja, a própria visitação que essa campanha gerou nas propriedades faz com que a gente já tenha mais segmentação possível para novas campanhas como essa. O resultado disso foi bastante grande, a gente conseguiu manter, acho que pode passar, por favor, crescimento de venda em relação ao Dia das Mães. A gente cresceu quase 40% em venda pós-timing, que é um número que para a gente é surpreendente, foi muito legal, num período extremamente curto, e 70% a mais a semana depois da ação. Quais foram os aprendizados e as oportunidades que a gente vê desse negócio? Assim, acho que tem algumas bons aprendizados. O primeiro é uma coisa que eu sempre falo, que é tentar diminuir o gap entre o conteúdo gerado pela indústria e a página de produto do varejista. Ou seja, se a gente consegue drivear mais conteúdo para a página de produto, a gente vai conseguir atingir o branding necessário, os valores de marca, o conteúdo que a indústria precisa para o produto. Os produtos cada vez mais precisam ser explicados e a gente vai ter uma possibilidade de conversão de compra já nessa mesma página. Então, esse tipo de campanha permite esse tipo de coisa.
Assim, acho que para complementar, né, a gente vê um resultado de vendas depois do Dia das Mães maior que o Dia das Mães, a gente nunca tinha visto. Então, realmente foi uma ação que nos chamou muita atenção. Não houve dúvida em relação ao aumento do tráfego, né, a procura de produtos da Motorola dentro dos portais da Nova Pontocom, do Ponto Frio especificamente, no caso dessa ação. Só voltar um pouco, aqui a gente vê, né, aquilo um pouco também que foi apresentado na palestra anterior da Margo, onde a gente tem aqui uma campanha que tinha acabado de sair do ar, o Motorola Smartphone já, que a gente, conversando com o Vicente, eles se apropriaram disso, né? Então, na pesquisa de quem procurava Motorola, procurava a campanha, a gente estava também com alguns produtos novos, jogando esse tráfego, né? O Ponto Frio comprando esse tráfego e direcionando esse consumo para a sua loja, aumentando o volume de vendas. Foi uma ação de oportunidade, de inteligência e de muita presença, de muito time to market, né? Acho que foi uma ação muito diferenciada. A gente testou e que foi bacana também, diferente das ações de mídia cooperada tradicionais que a gente faz, que você tem dificuldade de mensurar o resultado, você investe num determinado tabloide, num formato que também é importante, que a gente vai continuar fazendo, mas você tem mais dificuldade de mensurar. E aqui, não, a gente consegue mensurar diariamente, né, de hora em hora, o resultado dessa ação, o resultado do montante de verba que você está investindo. Então, foi um aprendizado muito bacana que a gente organizou aqui em poucos slides para compartilhar com vocês.
Mensuração de venda e de tráfego também, né? Que assim, acho que é o principal gap que fica. É isso.
É isso aí, gente. Obrigado.
Obrigado.
O que a gente vai passar agora é para o painel que a gente chamou de inovação, né? O primeiro convidado que eu vou chamar ao palco é o Marcelo Dadian. Ele é diretor de marketing da Rossi e ele tem uma história boa para contar para a gente, né? O que eles chamaram aqui de microblast, que ele vai explicar para vocês, que é uma estratégia, parece que bastante simples e inovadora, para você alcançar um público-alvo numa segmentação geográfica, né? Então, o que acontece é que com as ferramentas do Google, você consegue ter aquele tiro de canhão quando necessário, fazendo aquele alcance nacional e forte, e você consegue dar aquela precisão que a gente fala a laser, quando você necessita encontrar e segmentar uma campanha para um público muito específico ou para alguma segmentação geográfica muito específica. Então, o que ele vai mostrar aqui, como exemplo do segmento imobiliário, é perfeitamente aplicável e escalável para outros verticais que trabalham com performance, né? Então, o que ele vai mostrar aqui que ele fez para vender um empreendimento em Porto Alegre é perfeitamente aplicável para um varejista que tem uma atuação específica em alguma geografia do Brasil, né? Então, é muito inspirador, muito legal e de uma simplicidade, das coisas simples que vêm as melhores ideias. Na sequência, a gente vai convidar ao palco a Ana, da Editora Globo. Ela é editora de mídias sociais da Globo, e ela vai mostrar o case da editora com o bom uso das redes sociais através do Google+, né? Que ela vai falar bastante de engajamento, de envolvimento entre os jornalistas e os leitores, e, no final, com uma alavanca de performance, né? Eu acho que o social está aí na vida de todo mundo, e o grande desafio para quem trabalha com performance é como transformar isso em rentabilidade no final do dia. Então, com vocês agora, Marcelo Dadian, da Rossi.
Bom dia, pessoal. Depois de assistir as palestras da manhã, eu me sinto extremamente estimulado com a oportunidade que a gente tem no nosso mercado de tornar o mercado imobiliário mais online do que ele é. E o que eu vou falar, além do microblast, é como isso está ajudando a nossa empresa a ser líder no setor online. Em primeiro lugar, eu queria agradecer ao Google, e aí eu faço questão de citar a Cláudia, o pessoal do Real Estate, o Alessandro, o Igor, o Eitan, a Maíra, que não estão aqui, porque essa é a lição número 1 que eu tenho. Quando eu falo para o meu pessoal, liga lá no Google, as pessoas acham que o Google é uma entidade, que não tem ninguém, ou que é um software. E, na verdade, não, é uma empresa que está aqui para nos ajudar a vender mais. E o microblast é uma experiência que surgiu dessa relação. Na verdade, quando nós estivemos no Google dizendo que a gente precisava de uma ação de alto impacto, uma ação que pudesse realmente atingir o nosso público lá em Porto Alegre, eles falaram, tem uma ferramenta que, na verdade, é uma metralhadora com mira laser, né, que consegue ter uma ação específica, segmentando por geotarget o nosso público, no caso lá em Porto Alegre, com poder preciso de mensuração e que, além disso tudo, vai conseguir potencializar as outras mídias de apoio, né? A campanha foi criada pela Léo Burnet, na parte offline, e online foi toda feita pela Adibat Tesla. Só para falar um pouquinho do mercado imobiliário, o mercado imobiliário de 2011, no número de lançamentos, movimentou 85 bilhões de reais. Nesse slide dá para a gente perceber qual que é o tamanho do mercado de São Paulo, aí representando 36% do número de lançamentos em São Paulo, com 30 bilhões de reais, 80 mil unidades. Eu coloquei isso porque a gente está falando em umas verbas de marketing do mercado total de 4 bilhões e 200 milhões de reais, e em veiculação nós estamos gastando aí 1 bilhão e 100 milhões. Quer dizer, é um mercado muito grande e que está caminhando ainda na online. Essa aqui é a balança da mídia. Só para lembrar, o mercado imobiliário mudou muito a partir de 2006, por 2 motivos principais. Algumas empresas abriram capital, acabaram aumentando a diversificação geográfica, aumentaram muito o tamanho delas, e a oferta de crédito também, que elevou bastante a demanda por imóveis. Porém, a forma de anunciar e promover os produtos continua sendo muito conservadora. Sempre o trio aqui, jornal, promoção e TV, representou o esforço de marketing máximo, e ser online até um período atrás significava ter um hot site, fazer e-mail marketing e talvez tentar um chat online. E hoje isso está mudando. Quer dizer, a gente tem a oportunidade de mudar isso, não porque a gente quer, mas porque o nosso consumidor quer e está procurando isso de uma nova forma. Essa aqui estou mostrando um pouquinho a extensão geográfica da Rossi, para mostrar qual é a nossa dificuldade de mudar uma cultura e transformar uma relação de vendas que existe há tanto tempo. Eu trabalho há décadas no mercado e sempre a gente achava que não ia ficar obsoleto, isso agora está mudando. Então, o trabalho que a gente tem que fazer é de levar para as pontas essa nova cultura. Isso começou, e quando a gente começou a pensar isso, porque é fácil como consumidor a gente pensar isso, mas por que aí eu pensei nessa pergunta, por que nós não vendemos da mesma forma que compramos? Porque para comprar, nós somos todos muito bons. Entramos no Google, vai lá, faz a compra, põe no carrinho e está resolvido. E para vender? Para vender, a gente não tinha conhecimento e as barreiras eram muito grandes. Eu comecei a estudar essa questão das barreiras. E uma das grandes barreiras era essa. O pessoal do online falava outra língua. E a minha turma não consegue falar essa língua. Quando a gente discutia, liga para o Google é uma entidade. Vamos ver o CPC, CPA, CTR, GDN, remarketing, eles falavam que a gente estava ficando maluco. Então essa é uma barreira muito grande que o mercado imobiliário encontrou. Uma segunda barreira é a questão da diferença entre o mercado imobiliário e o e-commerce normal. O e-commerce a gente compra o produto, põe no carrinho. O mercado imobiliário é um pouco diferente, a gente está chamando de e-commerce. O e-commerce, na verdade, o objetivo do mercado imobiliário é levar o cliente online para o offline, levar o cliente para falar com os nossos corretores e ir aos estandes. Isso coloca alguns ruídos na nossa relação, porque ele tem que, às vezes, ser dirigido a uma central de atendimento, a central de atendimento vai para a imobiliária passa para o corretor, e todos esses pontos são canais de ruído que podem atrapalhar a venda. Então, e é isso que a gente está trabalhando, em melhorar essa relação entre os canais para poder aumentar o número de leads. Para isso, dentro da Rossi, nós criamos um movimento que eu chamei que era a pirâmide de onculturação. Onculturação nada mais é do que um neologismo aí, de criar a cultura online através de ações. Ações internas e externas. Eu vou falar um pouquinho sobre a ação externa, que é o case do Outlet em Porto Alegre, e ações internas nós temos promovido algumas reuniões com as nossas equipes do Brasil inteiro, junto com o Google, organizando o Google's Day, para poder justamente promover a cultura online. Ao mesmo tempo, depois que o pessoal está acostumado com a linguagem e com as ferramentas, nós criamos combos de mídia, ou seja, empreendimentos que têm pouca mídia. Para isso aqui vocês usam link patrocinado, usa o combo 1. Para empreendimentos que têm média verba, vocês usam links patrocinados e GDN. Para empreendimentos que têm verba maior, usam tudo isso mais o YouTube. Isso facilita a relação das pontas junto com a mídia online. E, além de tudo, o outlet, na verdade, é só a ponta da pirâmide, que é a ponta da ação que o consumidor, enfim, as pessoas externas à empresa percebem. Na verdade, embaixo, né, alicerçando tudo, tem o pilar da inovação, que é um dos valores da Rossi, a cultura online e, sobretudo, o poder que a mídia online tem de mensurar e trazer resultados online e resultados precisos. Esse eu sempre conto uma história que às vezes a gente pede para a pessoa, vamos fazer mais mídia online, e comparando com mídias offline ou mídias impressas, e ainda tem aquela coisa de tangibilizar. O anúncio de jornal, o cara vai, vê o anúncio do jornal, leva, mostra para a mãe, para o chefe, para todo mundo, para a auditoria, e o link patrocinado como que faz? É mais difícil porque ele não conhece as ferramentas de mensuração. Então é nisso que a gente está trabalhando. A pirâmide de oculturação ajuda a gente a transformar a nossa empresa. Voltando ao caso agora, indo diretamente ao caso do outlet, na verdade, eu coloquei essa frase aqui, o acaso encontra sempre quem sabe se aproveitar-se dele. Isso quer dizer o seguinte, eu estava indo para Porto Alegre, e do meu lado, na cadeira do lado, sentou o Patrick, que é um ex-executivo da Rossi, minha família tem alguns imóveis em Porto Alegre, ele falou, estou pensando em alugar uma loja que saiu um inquilino para a Rossi. E essa história ficou no ouvido, mas, enfim, não foi entre outros assuntos. Na hora de descer do aeroporto, ele falou, eu te dou uma carona até o escritório. Obviamente, como o vendedor, ele desviou do caminho, que não era caminho do escritório, e passou em frente à loja. Quando ele passou em frente à loja, eu olhei a loja, que é uma loja maravilhosa, na Lilo Peçanha, 60 metros de frente, falei, aqui tem que sair alguma coisa. E fiquei pensando, e veio um insight de fazer o outlet, e quando a Léo Burnet foi apresentar uma campanha, a gente estava lá para ver uma nova campanha da Léo Burnet, nós falamos, guarda esta campanha, e nós vamos fazer uma outra campanha, nós vamos fazer a campanha do outlet. Eles olharam e falaram, como, né? Nós vamos fazer a campanha do outlet. E foi assim que começou. Aqui é a loja na Nilo Peçanha, ela já está vestida, faltando aí 4 dias para a inauguração, né? E foi fruto do nosso microblast. Aqui para dar uma visão do que é a internet no Rio Grande do Sul, 4.800.000 internautas, mais de 17 horas semanais na internet, mais do que a TV, e as propriedades do Google com alcances extraordinários, tanto no Google, como no YouTube, como no GDN. O que motivou a gente ainda mais a fazer a ação. Aqui fala um pouquinho da ação em seus 3 momentos principais. Obviamente, eu vou contar o case de sucesso, então a gente vendeu tudo, mas no primeiro momento que é o teaser, o segundo o lançamento, e o terceiro comunicando o sucesso, onde nós vendemos 100 unidades disponibilizadas. E aí o conceito de outlet é legal, porque outlet não é pichinchão, não é saldão, é aquilo que você pode comprar como oportunidade. Todo mundo conhece os outlets, você compra alguma coisa, ou de uma coleção anterior, ou de uma cor não muito legal, ou até com um pequeno defeitinho, que no nosso caso são os apartamentos mais baixos, as prumadas mais valorizadas. Mas, de todo caso, o consumidor entendeu o que a gente estava comunicando e foi um sucesso de vendas, tanto que no segundo final de semana nós colocamos mais outras unidades à venda para poder atender a demanda reprimida e vendemos tudo. Aí, nesse caso, também tem a Ivete, a nossa garota propaganda, embasando a campanha. Essas aqui são várias peças do Blast, que nós fizemos em diversos canais. Sites, nós usamos os sites locais e nacionais para poder atingir tanto o cliente de Porto Alegre, lembrando que através do Blast eu atinjo exatamente os IPs que eu preciso, então está no G1, Guia Mais, aí no 0 Hora de Porto Alegre, jornal local, e o Correio do Povo também. Quer dizer, então a gente conseguiu abranger de uma forma muito grande todos os canais. Tão grande que até a gente recebeu comentários que, nossa, onde eu vou esse outlet me persegue. Na verdade não é o outlet que estava perseguindo, é que a gente estava com os canais certos, no momento certo, atingindo a pessoa certa. Então, foi isso que aconteceu. Esse aqui foi o TrueView, para quem não conhece, é uma ferramenta que passa o nosso filme que tinha 30 segundos. Nos primeiros 5 segundos as pessoas podem pular o anúncio, mas de qualquer forma, além de passar a nossa mensagem, nos primeiros segundos a gente está também valorizando a marca e aí tem uma relação com o branding muito importante. Essa é a landing page, onde todos os leads eram levados. E aqui sim, os dados da campanha nas três principais ações. O microblast, caiu quase 22 milhões de impressão, 26 mil cliques, e é importante também dizer que eles foram tagueados e nós dobramos o nosso a nossa base de clientes através do remarket, chegamos a quase 50 mil clientes no Rio Grande do Sul. O Search, que é a base de tudo, né, que é a base da ação. E o TrueView, que com 52 mil views foi realmente uma ação importante e inovadora. Quer dizer, nós tivemos aí, em 4 dias somente, 23 milhões de impressões, e 52 mil views e 41 mil cliques. E a hora que a gente compara tudo isso com os resultados e os investimentos, a gente vê que o investimento similar a uma página dupla de jornal, os resultados foram surpreendentes. Aqui eu já falei, um aumento de 100% na nossa lista de remarketing foi uma das coisas que a gente conseguiu. Se a gente for comparar o investimento face a visitas ao site, está aí, os investimentos no Blast em Search representando 13,4% do investimento e o resultado aí 77% de visitas ao site vindo por esses canais, fonte nossa e do Google Analytics. Investimento versus número de leads, que é o que importa para nós. Leads é contato com o corretor online, formulário, SMS ou telefone. Qualquer contato que transforme o cara do online para o offline. Nesse ponto, os resultados são mais expressivos ainda, onde a Blast com 13,4% de investimento, e aí o Blast mais o Search com 77%, quer dizer, mostra um resultado realmente muito forte. E se for pensar no custo por lead, a gente tem o Search como base de tudo, é um custo barato, porque as palavras são muito específicas, né, representando uma moeda. O Blast, 28 vezes o custo do Search, a TV 223 vezes, ou 8 vezes o custo do Blast, a TV, e o jornal custando quase 12 vezes o custo do Blast. Então, mostrando que o Blast, nesse caso, foi uma ação altamente eficiente, com baixo custo. Esse é o efeito do Blast no site. Né, a gente vê os 4 picos, foram os 4 dias que a gente usou a ação, e o efeito no site foi na hora, online, a gente podia medir isso e ter certeza que ia ser uma ação de sucesso. Não preciso dizer nada, foi 100% vendido o empreendimento, todas as unidades que foram colocadas. A gente, a partir da semana que vem, está organizando a mesma ação em Vitória e Manaus, quer dizer, dentro da continuidade do programa do sucesso do Outlet. E mais que isso, voltando à história da unculturação, eu queria lembrar que isso é uma alavanca. Na verdade, é uma alavanca dentro de uma estratégia online muito maior, onde o Outlet está inserido. E isso quer dizer que o apoio do Google nisso é muito importante. Porque, como disse a Margo anteriormente, o Google nos ajuda a achar nossos consumidores, faz o nosso trabalho de web work, e a gente quer estar nele, como líderes e juntos. Agora eu vou passar o nosso filme, para vocês verem que o que a gente falou foi verdade. Né? Então roda aí o filme, por favor.
Com esse empreendimento.
A expectativa de bons descontos.
Espero que hoje eu saia daqui com o meu apartamento.
Mais uma vez a Rossi, que é líder de mercado no Sul, de tantos cases aí de sucesso ao longo desses 12 anos, hoje novamente inovou. Sinceramente, nunca tinha visto um produto imobiliário no dia anterior, às 7 horas da noite, clientes fazendo fila com a sua cadeirinha aqui para não perder a oportunidade de comprar um apartamento. A gente tem agora aqui 200 clientes, 200 pessoas sendo atendidas, concomitante, a fila ainda cheia, e não são nem 9 horas da manhã.
Muito bom estar perto de pessoas que te dão uma certa segurança. A Rossi nos deu todas as condições. Adoramos.
Bom, pessoal, isso que eu queria falar. Deixar nossos recados aqui para a Rossi, sobretudo para a equipe de marketing, que está no Brasil inteiro assistindo. A gente está com muito orgulho de apresentar essa peça e dizer que a gente está pensando, como o Nikesh falou, estão pensando um pouco fora da caixa. Eu tenho certeza que vem muita novidade por aí. Obrigado, pessoal.
Convidada é Ana Brambila, editora de mídias sociais, Editora Globo.
Olá, gente, boa tarde, obrigada. Então, depois de vários casos inspiradores, né, vamos tentar trazer uma outra face, digamos, desse universo de tecnologia, conteúdo, que diz respeito, imagino, pelo menos a um pedacinho do trabalho de cada um de nós. Embora eu seja da Editora Globo, e lá, claro, o nosso core, né, o DNA da nossa empresa, seja conteúdo, seja jornalístico, é importante também a gente trabalhar a marca, né, não apenas com um viés editorial, mas como uma marca de mercado que tem que se relacionar com os usuários, os consumidores e também com os anunciantes. Então, aqui, só para a gente tentar entender um pouco desse universo em que a gente trabalha, claro, dá para a gente imaginar, né, ainda essa divisão que existia até há um bom tempo e que, em alguns momentos, ainda existe, né, do jornalista de um lado, o público do outro, e aqui, nesse momento das mídias sociais, o jornalista e o público ali interagindo de maneira muito mais próxima, né, e muitas vezes um complementando a experiência de navegação do outro. É nesse espírito que a gente quer cada vez mais trabalhar lá na Editora Globo. Então, eu particularmente pertenço a um setor que se chama inovação digital, onde uma das áreas é justamente de inteligência de conteúdo. O que significa isso? A gente trabalhar cada uma das 18 marcas de maneira estratégica, né? São marcas de revistas ou de produtos exclusivamente digitais. Então, trabalhar essas marcas de maneira estratégica justamente nessa junção entre público, né? E aqui, claro, a gente está tratando o público como um colaborador, como um consumidor, né? Nessas diversas faces. E como uma empresa de comunicação cujo modelo de negócio ainda é muito baseado na publicidade, né, em ad display, a gente obviamente tem metas e metas de audiência, né? Então a gente ainda precisa olhar para os page views, a gente ganha dinheiro através desse modelo de negócio. E as mídias sociais, elas chegam aí, obviamente, para nos dar um aporte, né, para trazer mais audiência para a gente. Agora, quem pensa que fazer mídias sociais numa empresa de comunicação para gerar audiência seja simplesmente jogar uma porção de links, desculpa, mas está no caminho um pouco equivocado. O caminho é distante, especialmente porque ele trabalha com métricas um pouco mais subjetivas, né? E aí, obviamente, a palavra da ordem do dia é o engajamento. Só que engajamento, enfim, é uma coisa super ampla, ninguém sabe exatamente como medir, né? Tem, obviamente, ferramentas qualitativas que tentam chegar perto do sentimento do público, mas, mais do que isso, a gente quer apostar em outros dois valores, na humanização e também na personificação. E aí é bacana, porque o Nikesh falou de manhã sobre a personalização, né? Sobre o fato de tornar as tecnologias cada vez mais próximas do universo de cada um, da necessidade de cada pessoa. E aí, por um outro lado, uma empresa de comunicação precisa, sim, buscar atender essa necessidade das pessoas, de deixar tudo ao redor delas com a cara delas, mas também essa própria empresa precisa ter uma cara, né? Para quê? Para que nesse ambiente de conversação, o público não converse simplesmente com, enfim, um logotipo, né? Mais do que um logotipo, ali atrás tem gente, né? Mídias sociais, o nome já diz, é a sociedade que está ali por trás disso. Se a gente não apostar nesse elemento humano, enfim, a coisa perde o sentido. E o que nos leva, né, o que nos junta, nos aproxima desses valores que o Google trabalha também, boa parte das ferramentas, especialmente no Google+, é essa questão da humanização. E aí a gente vai ver alguns exemplos que aconteceu recentemente com o lançamento do Hangout On Air, né? Enfim, essa ferramenta que junta até 10 pessoas simultaneamente para conversar, e aí essa transmissão ela é ao vivo para o mundo inteiro, simultaneamente pelo YouTube, também pode ser embedada nas nossas páginas, o que também pode nos trazer audiência. Mas, antes disso, o que eu acho bacana a gente ressaltar do Hangout, que é uma prática que a gente vem fazendo desde o lançamento mundial, né, em maio, se eu não me engano, e até hoje, é justamente a gente tentar essa aproximação. Né? E aqui a gente traz um exemplo, que é quando o diretor de redação da revista Galileu abriu um espaço, né, se colocou no Hangout e disse, olha, vamos conversar sobre a edição. A revista Galileu recentemente passou por uma mudança editorial bastante grande, uma mudança gráfica, e estava ali o jornalista para dar a cara a tapa. Né? Então, justamente para ouvir reclamações, dúvidas, e tudo isso de uma maneira pública. Pensem vocês, o jornalista, especialmente um jornalista da velha guarda, não é o caso do Emiliano, porque ele é jovenzinho, mas o medo, né, que o jornalista não sofre nessa hora. Né? O rei está nu. Então, nesse momento aqui, a gente realmente tenta entender qual é o espírito da comunidade. A comunidade pede isso da gente, eles querem estar próximos. Tanto é que a participação, nessas ocasiões, ela é bastante considerável. E num outro elemento também, ressaltando a humanização desses processos, o que é bacana é que esse botãozinho mais um aqui, que vocês veem cada vez mais espalhados pelos sites, esse plugin, que já está em todos os sites da Editora Globo, ele acaba oferecendo uma navegação muito mais em espiral. O que significa isso? Eu entro numa página de notícia da revista Época, e se eu clicar, ou simplesmente passar o mouse sobre esse botãozinho mais um, abre essa layer, em que vai ser recomendada uma outra matéria para eu ler. E não por acaso, e aí que é o mais interessante, essa matéria, ela foi recomendada por um amigo meu. Então, percebam o elemento da humanização. Não só eu estou sendo levada para um conteúdo que me diz respeito, mas quem está me mostrando aquele conteúdo não é um robô, não é nem a revista Época, é um amigo meu. Então, eu acho que o que o Google Plus traz de elemento nessa hora é justamente essa chancela pública e próxima. Né? Então, são valores que estão muito coerentes, digamos, com esse espírito, com essa preocupação social. E aí a gente busca outras justificativas, digamos assim, que não são aplicáveis, obviamente, só à Editora Globo, mas me parece que é o mercado todo, especialmente o mercado de conteúdo, que, obviamente, investir hoje em Google Plus é um formato inovador, a gente está super engajado na produção cada vez maior de vídeo, a gente consegue fazer conteúdos derivados daquilo ali, quer dizer, fazer uma transmissão de Hangout, perdão, ela é muito simples, né? E a partir dessa transmissão, já que ela fica gravada, a gente pode cortar esse vídeo em vários drops, né? Ou até mesmo fazer uma matéria em texto, enfim, infográfico, a partir daquela entrevista, daquele bate-papo que foi gravado. E, sobretudo, gente, o que é bacana, o que o Hangout On Air tem trazido para a gente, é a possibilidade de a gente se inserir no buzz em geral de toda a rede social. Por exemplo, quando houve o lançamento mundial, né, uma grande maratona de 100 hangouts aqui no Brasil, a revista Época fez um hangout aberto, a participação do público, com o Jovem Nerd, né, o Azaghal, que é esse mocinho aqui. Ou seja, são figuras bem conhecidas da rede, do nicho, e foi um dos hangouts que mais bombou. Agora, recentemente, faz umas 2 semanas, o menino da Gina Indelicada, né, o Rick Lopes, ele esteve lá na Editora Globo, então a gente também fez uma matéria, fez uma entrevista ao vivo com ele, no Hangout, com a participação dos usuários simultaneamente. Então, são ideias que a gente, claro, tenta apostar em formatos diferenciados e tentando aproximar o público. Mais do que a gente participar e fazer hangouts de maneira periódica, o que a gente tem tentado trabalhar é com hangouts cada vez mais de grande amplitude. Então, participando de ações que o Google, felizmente, tem organizado de maneira muito coerente aqui no Brasil, por exemplo, Restaurant Week, né, na semana passada. O Mundo do Sítio mostrou que é um produto essencialmente digital, é um jogo para crianças, enfim, ele mostrou como fazer um sanduíche com um formato de porquinho. Quer dizer, é uma coisa que vai tentar trazer o lúdico, né, um formato diferenciado, e atingir um público que é complicado de trabalhar, né, e é um público que cada vez mais quer dizer, quer falar, quer se expressar. Ou então a gente tentar levar essas pessoas para o estúdio, cantar, mostrar como é que funciona, ensinar a fazer uma bola de sabão gigante, enfim, pensar em coisas que, num padrão normal de comunicação, a gente não pensaria. E se até o Obama, né, se colocou à disposição do público para conversar através do Reddit, né, e também através dos Hangouts, e que não por acaso o New York Times fez um trabalho super interessante de divulgação desses Hangouts, né, inclusive com a Condoleezza Rice, já há alguns meses, colocando na home, né, embedando o Hangout na home do veículo, do jornal. Quer dizer, é pensar fora da caixa, é experimentar um formato diferenciado, e aí a gente consegue perceber em que momento aquela empresa de comunicação está. Se é simplesmente replicando padrões ou se é, de fato, experimentando coisas novas. Mas, com isso, eu quero dizer que o Hangout em si ele é uma ferramenta que funciona, claro, muito bem, não só para personalidades, digamos, celebridades de nicho da rede, como também celebridades de massa, né? Como foi o caso da Cláudia Leite, quando a gente fez o Hangout com ela, através da plus page da revista Crescer. Imagina, a Cláudia Leite estava grávida, né? O público-alvo da Crescer são gestantes e também mamães, né? Recém-mamães, e aí nos trouxe resultados bem animadores. A revista Quem, Universo de Celebridades, também participou dessa maratona de 100 Hangouts e trabalhou aí convidando o Michel Teló, antes mesmo do Michel Teló ter uma plus page oficial. Quer dizer, a gente levou o computador até o lugar onde o Michel Teló estava gravando um vídeo, que era uma casa de música sertaneja aqui em São Paulo, plugou com 3G, quer dizer, a simplicidade da conexão, do funcionamento da ferramenta era tamanha, que a gente conseguiu fazer uma transmissão ao vivo, as pessoas entravam, faziam perguntas super tranquilamente, e bombou a coisa, né? Então, isso aqui são alguns números de que a gente conseguiu de novos seguidores somente com essa ação. Bom, uma questão de formato, né? O formato, na visão do jornalista, ele é fundamental, né? E eu acho que cada vez mais em gestores de conteúdo social, formato é o que vai te garantir um engajamento, né? Ou vai fazer com que o teu seguidor ele simplesmente seja mais um número, né? Porque eu costumo brincar que não basta seguir, é preciso interagir, né? Porque para seguir, seja uma fanpage, seja um perfil de Twitter, seja uma plus page, basta apertar um botão. Agora, manter aquele cara ali todos os dias, dando mais um, curtindo, compartilhando, interagindo com a tua marca, vai depender do formato. E aí existem, claro, alguns formatos de conteúdo que são aquelas receitas meio garantidas de engajamento, né? Como, por exemplo, um selo, né, que a revista Crescer já junta o dia do rock com um buzz de internet, enfim, e faz uma piadinha, ou mesmo uma foto super aberta num post. Por que isso? Seria muito mais fácil copiar e colar o link, né? O título já vai automaticamente, tal, mas não. A gente tem que baixar a cabeça e pensar um pouquinho no tipo de conteúdo que a gente vai colocar ali. Se for simplesmente copiar e colar um link, então aciona um robô que ele faz esse trabalho para a gente. Em mídia social, a gente sabe que o público está super atento, vai identificar logo que é um robô que está fazendo aquele trabalho e, enfim, vai julgar super mal e com razão. Que mais que a gente trouxe aí para ver? Agora, no dia do folclore, o Cristiano Santos, inclusive, que está aqui, ele teve essa super ideia de bebês fofinhos e que retratassem algumas figuras, alguns folclore brasileiro. E aí é lógico, né? Bichinho, comida, bebês fofos, eles geram um engajamento enorme. Mas o bacana aqui é que não é simplesmente jogar um bebezinho lá para as pessoas curtirem, para as pessoas darem mais um. Não, tudo tem que ter um gancho, né? Então, aqui eles perguntam, quem tem um curupira em casa aí? Dá um mais um. Ou então, a sereinha, né? Imagina, 426 comentários, 320 mais um, 243 compartilhamentos, que para a nossa realidade e para essa marca está sendo um resultado muito interessante. Comentava antes que a gente pode embedar esses hangouts também dentro dos nossos sites, né? Então trazendo audiência para a gente também e contextualizando. Outra coisa bem bacana de se fazer em hangout é criar uma programação. O que significa isso? O público já vai esperando aquela transmissão, aquela interação com tal marca, em tal dia da semana, em tal horário. É um pouco a lógica da TV ainda, né? De que a gente vai se programar para... Bom, segunda-feira, 15h, eu sei que eu vou ter um momento de poder discutir a capa da revista Época com o diretor de arte da redação, que é o Marcos Marques. Então, toda segunda-feira à tarde ele está lá, se dispondo a conversar com o público a respeito disso. Leva a crítica, enfim, acontece, mas, sobretudo, é um trabalho que enriquece, né, a nossa atuação, sobretudo no veículo. E também quando o Gianni Tartari, que é sommelier, dá aula sobre vinhos, enfim, meus 5 minutos, outro produto digital, já fez um curso de maquiagem, né, então, cada aula com o Marcos Costa, o maquiador Marcos Costa, era um hangout. Então, tinha aula de batom, tinha aula de sombra, aula de maquiagem, de base. Quer dizer, cada momento a gente vai oferecendo pílulas de conteúdo, de conhecimento e criando o hábito, criando a fidelização. Um parceiro nosso, na verdade, um irmão, né, das organizações Globo, que é o jornal Globo, experimentou recentemente uma outra funcionalidade agregada ao Google+, que são as extensões, né, a extensão social. O que ela te diz? Ela associa a atividade do teu grupo de amigos no Google+ ao AdSense. Então, o que significa isso? Sempre que eu enxergar um anúncio do jornal Globo, eu não vou enxergar somente o anúncio, eu vou enxergar quais foram os meus amigos que deram mais um no jornal Globo. Então, percebam aquela lógica da recomendação, da chancela. E não é uma chancela qualquer, não é simplesmente um leilão de palavras. Mais do que isso, é a recomendação de quem? Dos meus amigos, a pessoa que eu mais confio. E uma coisa bacana também que a gente viveu recentemente, através dessa parceria com o Google, foi do lançamento das URLs customizadas do Google+. A gente já está super habituado aqui a trabalhar com facebook.com/nome da marca. E aí, lá no Google+, existia uma certa dificuldade para a gente, enfim, customizar aquela URL. Então, se usava encurtadores, mas nada oficial. E agora que o Google+, ele não só te permitiu customizar aquela URL do Google+, como ele simplificou ao máximo e fez com que as nossas URLs, que antes eram plus.google.com/041597, virassem google.com/mais época. Quer dizer, mais simples do que isso não tem. E isso aí, esse lançamento, né, que trouxe a Editora Globo como uma das empresas pioneiras aqui na América Latina a experimentar essa funcionalidade, nos gerou, no intervalo aí de cerca de uma semana, um aumento de 99% na nossa base de seguidores, o que é bastante animador, especialmente tendo em vista aqui o nosso retrospecto, que já é bastante interessante, né? Isso é a quantidade de pessoas que as páginas da Editora Globo e das edições Globo com The Nest, que é, enfim, uma joint venture da Editora Globo, elas unidas ultrapassam a marca de 4 milhões de seguidores. Quer dizer, é muita gente. E a gente está realmente super animado em trabalhar cada vez mais com essa plataforma, que nos mostra que coincide com esses valores de aproximação, de humanização do público com as redes e, sobretudo, com as marcas. E agora, para finalizar, eu queria, por gentileza, passar um vídeo que mostra, entre outros parceiros do Google, a Editora Globo também como, digamos, uma das primeiras marcas e também de maneira bastante intensa a experimentar esse formato do Hangout. Por favor.
Esse é o momento chave, né? Conhecer, tomar contato com a ferramenta para que a partir do momento que a gente já sabe todo o potencial dela, a gente comece a ter ideias.
Foi essencial ter essa visão em todas as funcionalidades, todos os recursos.
É uma ferramenta que te ajuda muito hoje na venda.
Mesma quantidade de produtos que você tem nas lojas físicas, você consegue encontrar no site também.
A facilidade de você ter um acesso rápido com o cliente.
A gente consegue, desde pensar num programa diário, até a gente fazer coberturas de eventos usando o sistema do Hangout.
Você consegue fazer uma transmissão ao vivo que antes a gente precisava de um link ao vivo. Tinha vários cursos, hoje a gente consegue fazer assim, vamos fazer botar no ar o Hangout.
E aí, pessoal, tá começando o primeiro Hangout da Quem, especial com o Michel Teló.
Para falar sobre os destinos, para tirar dúvida dos clientes.
É uma ferramenta que tem um potencial enorme.
Ele é simples de fazer, qualquer um pode operar.
É gratuito, né? Isso tem muito peso, claro, quando a gente vai eleger algumas prioridades.
Fazer as pessoas participarem mais, não só você falando sozinho.
Você está vendo quem está te atendendo.
O fato de ter mais pessoas participando de diferentes pontos, isso é algo inédito, né, no aspecto de redes sociais.
Tô conectada do celular.
Traz uma descontração maior, traz uma segurança maior.
A gente pode interagir com as pessoas e ver as pessoas, a gente pode pegar os convidados de outros lugares.
E depois disso, ter esse vídeo já renderizado e já no ar, assim, sobe no YouTube.
Obrigado pela participação de todos vocês e conte sempre com a gente.
Quando vai ser o próximo Hangout?
E aí, quem quiser continuar essa conversa, a gente está super à disposição. Obrigada, gente.